Chapter 1 Alone No More. Author's note: for those who had not read Lords of Ool Gown, you can jump to the start of Chapter 1 right away, and I hope you'll enjoy the story. So, as I already pointed out in Synopsis, this is a rewrite of Lords of Ool Gown. At first, I wanted to just update grammar and maybe add small details here and there, but as I started to work on this project again, I came to realize that I want to give myself more freedom when going through it again. Looking back, I have to admit that large parts of the story are rushed and could be better fleshed out. Some story elements will be better explained and some made more noticeable. Regarding the main direction the story will go, all I will say is that most of the actors will remain the same and the story starts from the same point as before, so do not expect radical changes in the first volume. Of course, if you compare the old and new version side by side, the changes should be obvious. That said, I do plan to retain the parts of the original story that I myself like or were very well received by the readers. Cover art by Sophia_Illust73 Twitter handle. X. In the year 2138, VR technology had become one of the main sources of entertainment. Combined with nanotechnology, it gave way to virtual worlds where people would spend every free minute of the day. Such worlds gave deep immersion and distraction from the hard reality of the polluted world and the corporate-ruled society, where the human rights and luxuries that once were enjoyed by most had now all but eroded. Players could experience physical sensations as if they were inhabiting the game's world. Sensations were still not fully comparable to the real world, but each generation of technology brought it one step closer to total immersion. One such virtual world was Yggdrasil. Released 12 years earlier, in 2126, Yggdrasil gave players an incredible amount of freedom compared to its competitors, resulting in an explosion in popularity. For years the game reigned as the undisputed king of its genre. But no king rules forever, and sooner or later it all had to come to an end. A new era of VR technology was approaching, and Yggdrasil was losing popularity over the last 2 years because it, at this point, was outdated by most modern standards. Most of the players quit during this time, leaving only a small minority of enthusiasts that kept the game alive, if barely. Unfortunately, in a world driven by corporate profits, a game that didn't bring enough money wasn't worth keeping alive for very long. Once game profits dropped below a certain point, the developers unsurprisingly announced the server shutdown. Even if those few who still called this virtual world would fight tooth and nail to keep it alive, it didn't matter to the people who made the decisions. The last month went by quickly. Only 2 days were left until the server shut down, and once it did, everything inside Yggdrasil would be gone forever. X. After another long workday, Suzuki arrived home mentally exhausted. His routine following his return home after work started with locking the door and double-checking that the lock didn't malfunction. Not that his old run-down apartment had anything of value hidden, but these days, the homeless could kill you for a few yen and squat in the abandoned apartment until someone noticed the change of tenant. After that, Suzuki took off his protective suit and breathing mask, putting them in the corner of the room in a robotic manner. The outside world was far too hostile, and without these tools, it would be practically impossible. With the entire Earth remade in the name of progress, or in truth, just in a ceaseless drive to maximize corporate profits, people were forced to wear such devices or suffer the consequences of acid rain and smog. The one-room apartment waited for him unchanged. It was decorated with only the barest of appliances and furniture, kept just clean enough to show signs of someone living there. It was a simple place for a single person to live in. The only bed was far too narrow for a couple to sleep in it together, but for someone like Suzuki, this was a non-problem. The small kitchen area had only one chair, and the most obvious sign of a lone occupant, just the one dive VR system. Suzuki's mother, his last relative, died 23 years ago. He never knew his father or any other relatives. There might have been aunts and uncles at some point, but they were likely dead by now. With life being what it was, the working class rarely lived past the age of 50, and even 40 was considered a decent lifespan. It went without saying that things such as a natural lifespan were merely words in a dictionary to the uber-rich. Maybe he had cousins somewhere out there, but it didn't matter. As someone who had problems socializing in real life, he would not even know how to approach relatives if he even had any left. The same personality trait was at fault for him never having a girlfriend. In his early 20s, it still bothered him, but now at the age of 31, he saw no point in trying to find someone to share a life with. Sometimes the thought of hiring a prostitute emerged in the bouts of loneliness, but he always rationalized that it would diminish the genuine experience if he ever were to have one in the first place. That, and he didn't even know what the first step would be in order to do such a thing. The next point on the daily to-do list was to eat. After all, one could not go without food for too long. With actual food being far too expensive for daily consumption, Suzuki took out a packet from a cupboard in the small kitchen area with a gelatinous substance inside. It had a weird taste but contained most of the nutrients the human body needed, not to mention it was cheap enough for even the poor masses to eat daily. The microwave, missing the knob regulating the power, did its job well enough, and 2 minutes later, the salaryman had his daily meal. Suzuki wolfed it down without really noticing the synthetic taste. Every moment spent on the daily activities was a moment he couldn't spend in the game, after all. The final thing he needed to do before he got back to his true life was a quick shower, and then he finally could get inside the virtual world, his real home. Refreshed, he leaned back in the gaming chair, the most expensive piece of furniture in his apartment, grabbed the nanomachine injector from the small stand beside it, and replenished the artificial sensors within his body via a quick injection in his right arm. There was no point in paying attention to the mild jolt of pain. The game was waiting. The VR helmet was put on and adjusted, and a comfortable position was found. The stage was set. He could finally start to live. After a few brief moments, he logged into Yggdrasil and stood as his avatar, a skeleton of some unknown humanoid race. Where his eyes should be, there were only dark red flames that looked like if you were to touch them you would burn forever. He was dressed in an academic gown that looked as black as night with the finest gold and violet edges, and under this gown, one could see a ribcage with a glowing red orb inside. He played as a mage who specialized in necromancy and chronomancy on top of an overall wildcard build, an all-around support character. His avatar was the highest racial class a skeletal undead could acquire, Overlord. Out of habit, Suzuki opened the UI panel and looked at the guild member list. No one else besides him was online. He stared at the empty list for a good minute and then closed it with a long sigh. No one had logged in for months. As the guild leader of the most infamous guild in Yggdrasil, Ainzul Gaon, he was the only one left. Out of the 41 original members, 37 simply quit. They gave him all their items, said one last goodbye, and logged out. The remaining 3 that hadn't formally quit simply didn't show up for months. The only thing that remained was the long list of names, as even after they quit the game, he didn't remove them from the guild. I should have stopped looking at that list a long time ago. Momonga let out a sigh. I hope at least some of my friends will come back to join me tomorrow. He was alone in the tomb. He was the king of a dead guild. How fitting. An undead ruler left alone in a tomb to watch over it till the end of the world. The once plentiful interactions with other players were now replaced with one-sided talks with the NPCs. As weird as it would seem, he always politely greeted them, sometimes getting pre-programmed replies. There would be times when Momonga would tell them stories about the good old days, or just rant about the unfairness of being the last member of Ainzul Gaon in Yggdrasil. He had kept up an email correspondence with a few players. Pero Roncino, Bukubuku Chigama, and Albert were among those with whom he had the most frequent correspondence. Momonga considered them his friends, with Pero being his best friend for a long time. However, lately, life got in the way more and more. Daily email exchanges had become a weekly occurrence at most. Once the developers announced Yggdrasil was shutting down, Momonga had planned to invite all the former members to one last gathering so that they could say goodbye to their home. Most didn't even bother to respond. And why would they? For most, it was just a game and there was always the next one to play. That little did the end of their favorite gaming world or the virtual friendship they had mean to them. Some had replied that they didn't have the time, out of politeness, but they were the minority. It wasn't all doom and gloom. He got a few positive responses and promised to reunite in the game for one last time. His once best friend Puro, with his sister Buku, had promised to come. The 2 people who were instrumental in making him come out of his shell at least to some degree. Puro was an easygoing guy who could befriend pretty much everyone and drag them to adventures. Buku often was as easygoing as her brother but had a hell of a mean streak if angered, and her short temper was well known among the guild members. She was the first woman Momonga had interacted with on a prolonged basis, and she was one to make him open a bit and not short-circuit when talking with someone he would find attractive. Albert and Haruhiro both had given vague answers hoping that they could make it. What surprised him the most, however, was that the player named Tabula Smaragdina had replied with a long letter promising to come in the last few days and asking if Momonga would permit him to change his creations for some bizarre reason. Those 3 players could not be more different if they tried. Albert was obsessed with role-playing as an evil antagonist, jaded by the unfairness of life. Hiro was a humble and polite man who far too often was taken advantage of, and it was especially prevalent in the work environment where he often worked himself to the bone. And then there was Tabula. He could make everyone look sane compared to him. The man had many eccentricities. His interests and beliefs sat at the deep end of the fringe and he was not shy about sharing them. If you let him, he would talk about obscure things for hours, ignoring all attempts of trying to steer the conversation in a different direction. Today, tomorrow, and that's it. Just 2 days and all of this will be gone. Suzuki thought with bitterness in his heart. In 2 days, his true home would be gone. The place where he met his friends and made the strongest guild, all of it would be gone. What to do today? Momonga asked himself aloud, glancing around the magnificent conference room. The walls were decorated with dark red velvet flags with the guild crest, and in the middle of the room sat an immense round table with 41 chairs. He sat down in his seat and opened the UI panels, checking if there were any notifications or last-minute developer announcements that could come live any moment, as it had been the case more often than he cared to remember. His habit of speaking aloud was not something to be proud of, but it's not like anyone would know about it. There was a small chance a board game master could be watching, but that possibility was not bothersome. If the shitty devs want to listen to me talking to myself, that is their problem, not mine. As long as I show up at work and do my job, no one will send me to a loony bin. I could try to raid some abandoned guild base that is still left standing, Momonga said, opening the world map. Most of the well-known abandoned guild bases were cleared out by this point as the few enthusiasts who still played the game slowly chipped away their defenses and looted everything that was not nailed down. No, that's not a good idea. I could get stuck, die more than once, and lose levels. With 2 days left, Momonga decided that the risk of dying for a rather small reward didn't seem worth the trouble. A random trap or a guild guardian made with the opposite build to his could be his undoing, and the possibility of spending the last moments with an avatar that had lost levels and gear seemed like an insult to the guild's legacy. After all, Ain's Ulgaun does not know defeat. The reputation of the most dreaded heteromorph guild had never faded, and even if many knew he was left alone, few of the more active guilds didn't try to invade Nazarick as the tomb was still considered impenetrable. At the height of the game's popularity, numerous guilds united to conquer Nazarick with a 1,500-strong force of players and NPC mercenaries, and even then, this overwhelming force only managed to reach the 8th floor before they were crushed by the clever traps and defenses. On top of that, with all the previous raids, he already had over 1,800 unsorted items in his inventory, not to mention over 6,000 items dropped in the treasury, waiting to be sorted. During the last year, Momonga had hoarded tens of thousands of various items, including 9 New World items, and one he almost couldn't believe to have found was Endless Strive. This item lets its user increase the level cap by 20 levels, with the obvious catch being that one actually needed to reach the level by grinding XP unreasonably long, combined with pretty much painting a target on their back, since every player killer would make their mission to bump them down below level 100. Additionally, it was one of the 20 most powerful world items, meaning that it could be used only once before it disappeared back into the world after each use. The same item that 4 different world champion class players had used to bump their level cap to 120. Maybe I should have used it and leveled up. Momonga took out the world class item from his inventory and looked at the translucent cube with a constantly moving circle of red symbols inside. No. There's no point doing it today. Though at least our guild will go down in history as the one that held the most world level items. He put the item back in the inventory and taped the table. What to do? Oh, I know. I could go visit the floor guardians one last time. He finally decided and activated the Ring of Ain's Ulgaun. Without this item equipped, no one could teleport around the Great Tomb of Nazarick, his guild base. Of course, every single guild member had it, at least when they played. After a quick moment of contemplation, Momonga chose the treasury as his destination and teleported to the most secured part of the entire guild base. Instantly, a figure in a yellow uniform with a long coat over it came into view. It was Momonga's only direct creation, the treasury's guardian, Pandora's actor. The greater doppelganger had the typical look of his kind, a round, featureless head with 3 black holes where the eyes and mouth are supposed to be. The Overlord cringed at the memory of the phase he was going through when he made Pandora. Inspired by the Euro-archaeology wars that happened 20 years ago, he essentially wore a neo-Nazi uniform. Despite that, he was proud his creation shared his obsession for collecting, and unlike him, enjoyed sorting. Pandora's actor's backstory was written with him having an obsession for sorting items, making him extremely happy to be the treasury's guardian. Another purpose the dutiful NPC served was as the memory of Ain's Ulgaun. The greater doppelganger could transform into every single guild member and use most of their abilities with about 80% efficiency. I see you are doing a good job as always, Pandora. Momonga said out loud. The seemingly unmoving NPC gave a small nod of acknowledgement. He was already used to such small occurrences, writing them off as figments of his imagination, believing it happened because the lack of communication with other players was getting into his head. The next one he visited was the guardian of the first 3 floors, Shaltir Bloodfallen. Created by his best friend Peroroncino to be a very kinky flat-chested vampire who stuffed her bra to appear more mature, she was a red-eyed beauty of about 14 years old. She walked the usual patrol route and, when passing Momonga, she stopped and curtsied as she was programmed to do, playing a pre-recorded response. Guardian of the first, second, and third floors of the Great Tomb Nazarick, Shaltir Bloodfallen reporting for duty. Momonga patted her head, saying, "Keeping our home safe as usual." With her eyes seemingly glowing in happiness and her lips curled in a barely noticeable smile. Momonga sighed. "I should stop imagining that they are responding to me. It's not healthy. I might be slowly losing my mind," he admitted to himself. He visited Gargantua, the guardian of the 4th floor, next. A stone golem of immense size stood motionless. Momonga saluted but got no response from him. Unlike the other floor guardians, Gargantua was made without sentience. The immense guardian had next to no programmed routines and a backstory of only being a construct. It came as a compromise to get as much power-related data into it as possible. Cocytus, the guardian of the 5th floor, was next on the list. Stationed in the heart of frozen glaciers, he stood motionless with a weapon in each of his 4 hands. He was an insectoid-like creature with a light blue carapace and was made to be an embodiment of the word, warrior. Created by warrior Takemikazuchi, the mighty insectoid shared his creator's obsession for finding worthy opponents and honorable battles. "Happy to see you, Cocytus. Keep up the wonderful work," Momonga said as the figure seemingly straightened out and nodded. Seeing no reason to break the orderly descent, Momonga went to the 6th floor next. The jungle floor was guarded by Aura and Mare, the cross-dressing elven twins that looked to be about 11 years old, stationed in a house built inside an enormous tree. Both had golden hair and mismatched blue and green eyes. Both were created by Peroroncino's older sister, Bukubukuchigama. Finding them wasn't a hard task. The moment someone stepped into the arena located in the middle of the floor, the twins arrived to face the visitor. In his case, they were friendly, but if an intruder would reach the level, he or she would be in for a fierce battle. Both approached him and bowed as they were programmed to do. Momonga patted their heads. "Good job, Aura and Mare, your mother would be very proud of you both." He complimented them on their good work as their faces lit up in glee. She did love them as if they were her children. Memories of Buku playing with them, decorating their home, and trying out various costumes on them. If only things would be better and you didn't have to leave the game. A wave of sadness hit him as he recalled the last goodbyes Buku said to him in her 2 creations. He waved them goodbye and then went to visit Demiurge on the 7th floor. The guardian was a demon in a formal red suit with white vertical stripes. His facial features were that of an Asian man, with jet black spiked hair, round glasses, and a long, spiky tail. He was created by Ulbert Alon Odal as one of the evilest NPCs in Nazarick. Plotting evil things for the betterment of Nazarick, E.H. Momonga said with a little chuckle, and then he could swear he heard an almost inaudible, "Yes, Lord Momonga. Everything for Nazarick." He shook his head in disbelief. "I'm starting to hear voices. It's not long till I lose it completely." Not wanting to dwell on his encroaching insanity, he went to the 8th floor where Victim, an embryo-looking angel made as a living bomb, would spread a crippling debuff on every enemy upon their death. Victim was instrumental in stopping the largest invasion Nazarick ever suffered, since his debuff was what sealed the fate of invaders that were still alive at that point. In the center of the floor, up on the hill, Rubedo stood. As the strongest NPC of Nazarick by far, only her creator, Tabula Smaragdina, knew how she was made, but one thing was clear: a world item was involved in her creation. For now, she was in an inactive state and only Momonga, as guild leader, could activate her. "I could activate her to see her routines one last time, I better not. Who knows what sort of hidden tricks Tabula had left. I wouldn't want to leave the 8th floor in a devastated state." Momonga stepped away from the angelic figure. The last stop was the throne room. Momonga sat down on the magnificent throne of the kings and activated Nazarick's control consoles. The tedious task of managing the expenditures and checking every defense system was a daily necessity. At his side stood Albedo, the guardian overseer, a succubus dressed in a white dress. She had wings covered in black feathers sprouting out from her lower back, long black hair and golden cat-like eyes, and 2 horns, each at one side of her head. Her unmatched beauty was unnatural. Her creator, Tabula Smaragdina, went all out on her and somehow made what Momonga thought to be the perfect woman. Where he had drawn the inspiration to make her in such a way no one knew. Tabula always stated that she was a younger-looking version of his wife, but those who knew him in real life were aware that the man wasn't married. Momonga opened her panel and looked over her backstory, which he had read at least a dozen times. He had done so with most of the NPCs. Unrivaled in her administrative abilities and intellect, she had earned her place as guardian overseer. Albedo always has a gentle smile on her face, and her elegant way of speech has made many people think she is a goddess or an angel. However, she is cruel and manipulative towards those not from Nazareth but wears a facade hiding it. In addition, her feminine skills, particularly those of being a housewife, are excellent. During her free time, she can be seen sweeping, sewing, and so on. Though the reason is unknown, she enjoys cleanliness and her desire for such frequently drives her to clean things up. That said, the items accumulated through her collector's habit are typically very messy. Momonga was not sure if it was a jab from Tabula about his collecting habits or his weird way of setting up his avatar with Albedo. There was just one thing he couldn't stand in her backstory. The last phrase was, despite being a virgin, she was a slut. But no matter how much it vexed him, he couldn't bring himself into changing it. After looking at her for a moment as she stood unmoving with her gentle smile, he said, "Looks like it's just both of us, hard at work again." For a moment it looked like she smiled a wider smile, happier that he addressed her. Maybe that was a previously unseen animation. He tried to rationalize the new expression to himself. These episodes are getting worse. Could it be because the game is ending? The next 30 or so minutes were spent going through Nazareth's stats and expenses. Momonga said his observations and calculations loudly, mixing in a complaint or two about how he was the last guild member remaining and it was lonely without friends. When he glanced at Albedo again, he could swear Albedo's expression had changed into a mix between anger and sadness. But before he could wonder about it, something unexpected happened. A notification came up. Pero Roncino has logged in. Puro showed up today. Maybe he just mistook today as the last day of the game. The dot indicating Pero Roncino's location was in the conference room. Not a surprise considering that the default spawning zone was set there. The dot started to move toward the throne room at a rapid pace. Why isn't he, right? He gave me not only his gear but the ring as well. Only a few minutes later, Puro barged in shouting, "Momo, you old bones." Momonga looked at his friend for a moment. It was good to see the avian who was clad only in the game's default underwear, but even that didn't take away from the four-winged creature's magnificence. Clad mostly in white feathers with all four of his wings having golden reddish accents on top of them. Puro. He responded in a cheerful tone. Hey Momo, it's so good to see you, I hope I didn't disturb your private time with your waifu. Pero Roncino said with a loud laugh in his usual crude manner. Puro, I'm so glad to see you, but you are back a day early. The servers will only shut down tomorrow. Momonga ignored the taunt. The avian so often joked about Albedo being Momonga's virtual wife that Momonga stopped reacting to his friend's remarks at some point. I know, but sis is recording in the next room, so I am free for a few hours, and what better way to spend them than catching up with an old friend? Said Pero Roncino in an upbeat voice. How is she doing these days? Momonga asked. The email correspondence he kept with both siblings had already made him aware of Buku's condition and the struggles they both faced. Pero Roncino responded with a series of rants. Her back isn't getting better, not that it would without an operation. At this point, she can barely walk. I tried to talk her out of it, but she is spending every free moment on recording voices to save up at least some money while AI voice acting hasn't taken over the industry yet. She is losing hope in life, and I can't do anything about it. His voice broke, betraying his anger. Momonga put his hand on Pero Roncino's shoulder as much as game animation allowed it, while he ranted and said. I know you are doing the best you can for your older sister, she is lucky to have you in her life. Thanks, buddy. I guess I did need your sagely input. Puro responded sincerely. That's what friends are for, Momonga said kindly. Yeah, I knew I could rely on my best buddy. He has been the only one online for months. Puro suddenly realized as he glanced over the UI panels more out of habit than actually for any gameplay reasons. Shit, has he even communicated with anyone besides me and sis? And even that was once a week through email. Puro knew Momonga was all alone with no family, and no one to lean on. Not to mention that the introverted man likely didn't have any friends outside of games. Yeah, I know, Sorry Momonga, I didn't come here just to bitch about my life. How have you been doing all this time? He switched the conversation to Momonga's life. Momonga swallowed the bitterness of being left alone in-game for so long. After all, he knew about Bukubukuchigama's diagnosis. Fractures in the lumbar spine weren't an easy thing to live with, nor were they something that you can fix by taking 2 pills a day. She and her brother left the game at about the same time as she worked as much as she could to save money, and he fully supported her. How much he hated the world he lived in. The life of a young woman got progressively worse, because, despite her popularity as a hentai game voice actress and a sizable fan base, she couldn't afford an operation to fix her back. There were so many stories like hers. So many once they hit their 30s stopped playing games where heavy time investment was needed. Life just tore them all down. To distract himself and Pero Roncino from life even for a bit, Momonga told his friend with enthusiasm what he has been up to. Since most players have left the game, he has raided many empty guild bases and increased Nazarik's treasures at least 6-fold, and even managed to get 9 new world items, as most of them were just left behind by the players. Ever since the server shutdown was announced, devs had dropped the cash shop prices to such a degree that even a salaryman like Suzuki could buy up entire collections for next to nothing. He had purchased many new useful items to experiment with. Many of these items were doppelganger rings, book collections, race change consumables, and many other things. Puro gave his friend an envious glare with a pre-programmed avatar expression. Damn, that sounds so fucking awesome. How many items did you collect over this time, you little hoarder dragon? Do we need to worry that some invisible hobbits will show up to steal our shit now? Pero Roncino asked with a jab, comparing Momonga to a dragon from an ancient fantasy book. Then, remembering that he was without gear, he asked. Hey, is my old gear still lying around, by any chance? Knowing you, I doubt you just sold it as I told you to do. Oh, all your gear is in the treasury. I didn't sell any of it. Momonga pulled out a ring of Ain's Ul gown from his inventory and opened a trade panel to give it to Puro. Pero Roncino responded with a smiley emoji and almost dragged Momonga to the treasury to get all his old gear. As they passed Pandora's actor on their way, Pero Roncino remarked. When did that guy show up? Looks kinda cool with the uniform and all. Oh, he even salutes. I designed him some time ago. He is programmed to sort out the treasury. Cool. At least someone picks up after your mess. Puro laughed. Ha. Ha. Momonga responded with a cold, humorless laugh of his own. Once they entered the deepest part of the treasury, Momonga froze on the spot. I forgot about the statues. Just like him, Puro could see all the crudely made statues representing guild members clear as day. The avian seemed unfazed. He quickly approached the statue representing him and took his equipment piece by piece, remarking. Decent attempt, but you are no Lucifer when it comes to making statues. Not even a minute later, Pero Roncino had put all his old gear back, restoring his avatar to its past glory. Golden plate boots and gloves with claws, shoulder pads, and a mask perfectly molded to his face in the same color and a wide belt with golden silk strips resembling the lower part of a robe. He opened the inventory inspection panel and looked at his reflection. Back to looking magnificent as fuck. Sure, Momonga mumbled, still mortified that Puro saw his crude artistic efforts. Don't sweat it, buddy. Everyone has to start somewhere. Give it a year or two of regular 3D modeling effort and you'll make lifelike models. Puro said with a cheerful laugh, picking up on his friend's mood. Right, so is there anything specific you want to do today? Momonga asked. I would pay good money for the calming effect my game character has right about now. Let's just look around our base one more time. I'm not in a mood for any sort of grind. Puro said and activated the scratching his beak emote, although vandalizing some human guild base would be fun too. What followed next was a quick return to what once was. Both toured Nazarik, made selfies with the in-game UI, and goofed around. They even went on a rampage through an abandoned guild base in a remote region of Midgard. The Guardians were already dead and most of the very valuable stuff was gone, with few interesting trinkets remaining to be picked up by the explorers of the abandoned guild bases. When the in-game clock reached 9:30 p.m., Puro had to log off. His sister had finished her recording, and they planned to eat dinner together and watch a movie. He logged out, promising to come back tomorrow as well and bring his sister to wait for the so-called end of the world. Momonga let out a sigh. The happiness he felt about his friend showing up even for a bit didn't fade away immediately. But loneliness did creep in again, and now he was at a loss for what to do for the next few hours. Bonus story, meeting new people. Hey Birdbrain, where is the nanomachine tube? Akari shouted throughout their small shared apartment. It is where you last put it. Don't blame your failing brain on me. Her brother shouted back. And hurry up, my friends are waiting. Then help me find it. She rummaged through piles of stuff she had not bothered to pick up. If you used your time to not be a hoarder gremlin and tidy up your part of the apartment, this wouldn't happen every other day. Itsuki came into the room and looked at how his older sister was tossing her stuff around. Yeah, I'll just get a husband who does that for me. She continued her rampage. Itsuki shook his head and approached the bookcase full of his sister's collection of hentai manga and games and pulled out a tube that was stashed between two game cases. Here it is. I don't know what man would want to marry your lazy ass. Do you want a list? She showed her tongue to her brother and snatched the tube out of his hands. I'll pass. Gods forbid I ever get desperate enough to settle for a girl like you. He chuckled, leaving the room. Girls like me are out of your league. She shouted another insult at her brother and quickly injected herself with nanomachines, sitting down in the chair. She put on the VR headset and leaned back, appearing in the game world moments later as a pile of gelatinous red slime standing in a massive room full of other monstrous characters. Her character, Bukubuku Chigama, was only level 24 at this point as the constant PK or player killing knocked her level down. Her brother's avatar, an avian called Peroroncino, appeared next to her moments later. He was level 65 already and was wearing decent gear unlike her base one. So where are they? We have to travel to the clan base. Puro said, opening the game map and pointing at a spot. It's about an hour's walk away, so I guess we better pay for a gate. I don't have any money. Buku replied. I'll pay for it. Do not forget to save your spawn location in the base, that is if you don't fuck up your introduction and are not accepted in the clan. You told me that all that is required is to play a non-human race and have a job. Buku nervously responded. Yeah, but knowing you there is a 50-50 chance you'll say something inappropriate. Besides, there are no other girls in the clan. Hey, I can join a total sausage fest. Still beats getting ganked all the time. Buku giggled. Sure, okay, wait for a minute, I'll try to get us a gate. Puro said, opening the trade chat and typing in, WTB local gate, paying 2k. With few instant responses, he picked one and motioned for Buku to follow him. Both approached a player that was a flying eye with tentacles as a body and a loose robe covering most of the tentacles. Hey man, here is the location. Puro greeted the player and opened the trade panel and paid 2,000 gold coins for the service. Without much hesitation, the player cast the spell with a dark void appearing in front of them. Here you go. Pleasure doing business. Thanks man. He stepped into the void and disappeared. Buku followed her brother and, after a half-second loading screen, appeared in front of a decrepit castle. Accept the invite so you can go in. Puro sent her a group-up request. Buku did as told, moving behind her brother as he guided her through the run-down castle until they reached a massive double door. Inside they found a long corridor with a row of doors and at the end was a conference room. A few players already sat in the chairs. She noticed one in a world champion armor. There also was a ninja, a crab with blacksmith's gear, a Nephilim in samurai gear, a skeleton in a sorcerer's robe, and a few others each with their unique look. Hey, guys. I am Bukubuku Chigama, it's nice to meet you all. She greeted them in the high-pitched voice she used to voice lowly characters. Welcome to Nine's own goal. I am Touch Me, the clan's leader. Peroroncino had told us about your troubles and we would be happy to take you in and help you. The insectoid in the white world champion armor returned the greeting. So this is the one that ruins all your games. Nice to meet you, I'm Albert Olaine Odell. A goat man in a formal suit greeted her as well. Fan of your work. Another player joined in. Yua, a fan. Buku giggled. UWU, it's so big, it won't fit in me, senpai. She said with a burst of laughter. Puro standing beside groaned, earning a round of laughter from other players. After the laughter died down one by one, they introduced themselves and casted votes for her to join the clan. The final one that had not said anything was the skeleton sorcerer. When his turn came he said in a quiet tone, I'm Momonga, IV vote for. His voice faded out at the end. What's with that guy? Buku sent her brother a message. Momo. Oh, he is on the Shire side. He is not used to talking with women. Puro messaged back. One of those huh? So what, he is like 14-15 and has not done it yet. No. The guy is older than you, but he has never been with a girl, not even kissed. Shit, that's bad. Is he a creep in private? No, definitely not. We are good buddies. He usually doesn't directly talk with female players when we group up for events. Don't be too harsh to him, okay? He is a decent guy, just very shy around girls. I see. I'll see what I can do. For the next few days, the same pattern emerged. Momonga would greet her but would not engage in further conversations. After a few weeks, Buku had a particularly long voice recording session and she was home only at 11 p.m. With her brother already soundly sleeping in the next room, she quickly ate and logged into the game alone. At this point, she, with the help of the others, had caught up to most players in the clan and was level 61. To her surprise, Momonga was the only one online at that point, grinding mobs in some well-hidden area alone. Heya, how are things going? Buku sent a private message to him. Hey. Doing great. Was all that Momonga wrote back. Do you want to team up? I know I'm lower level but as a tank, it's very slow for me to level up. Sure. Momonga replied and teleported back to the guild base. He guided her to an area appropriate for her level and helped to kill mobs but as usual, didn't initiate any sort of conversation and only responded with 1 or 2 word answers. I'm not sure what sort of shit had happened in his life to be like this but something needs to be done. So, Puro said you are from Tokyo. Yes. Do you have a girlfriend? No. Living a playboy's life huh? Buku giggled. Momonga didn't answer but just tagged another mob and started doing damage to it. You know I have a lot of single coworkers who would love meeting with a decent guy like you. Or maybe you could be so daring and date your friend's sister. She giggled. Momonga's actions instantly got sloppy and she had to taunt the mob off him so the skeleton player would not die. Something happened. After a moment of silence, there was a short answer, no. The guy is a mess. I guess I could at least try to help him open up a bit. Hey, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. It's alright. I'm just tossing it out there, but would you like to have regular conversations and hang out in the game together from time to time? Just as friends. I promise to not tease you too much. Buku said, waiting for an answer. For a moment she thought Momonga would just log out but then came an answer. I would love to. Proofreading by Visor Nixon, sad_smiles, detract, Atero, crit, and rotten pizza. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 2 Yggdrasil's End. The answer on what to do for the remainder of the day soon came in the form of another notification. Tabula Smaragdina has logged in. He showed up today too. Momonga had to double-check the guild list twice to believe his eyes. The rather eccentric player had responded to Momonga's invite and had asked for permission to change some of the NPCs he had created, which in itself was strange enough. Tabula was not known for following the guild rules. From giving a world item to an NPC he created without even telling others to regularly borrowing other items that required a vote to be used from the treasury, he often didn't give any consideration to the rules. Why would he want to change NPCs in the last 2 days? Momonga couldn't figure out Tabula's motivations. He was one of the first to drop the game and had openly stated he didn't care about it anymore. For him to suddenly come back and want to make last day changes was strange even for him. Still, any company was better than none at all, and the very worst that could happen was Tabula would just ramble about his current interests, and that usually wasn't as bad as it sounded. To not make Tabula wait for him, Momonga used the Ring of Ain's Ulgaun and teleported to the conference room, finding the player just going through the UI and looking up development packs. Tabula played a race called Brain Eater, a creature with a squid-like face and tentacles sprouting out of his head and face. The rest of his body was extremely thin with very long arms and fingers. Same as Pero Roncino, he was only clad in the game's base underwear. Same as all players who left the game, he had given all his gear to Momonga. How have you been? I haven't heard from you for such a long time. He greeted Tabula through the voice chat. Oh, hello Momonga, my friend. I have been fine, suffering from a bit of writer's block lately, but otherwise no complaints. How is life treating you? Oh, I'm doing fine as well, Momonga politely replied. Tabula shifted around nervously. Thank you for informing me that Yggdrasil is shutting down. I know it will sound weird, but please let me change my daughters, and I urge you to rewrite your characters and creations, backstories to reflect how you would want to send them off. Send them off? What's gotten into him? I thought I was slowly losing it, but Tabula seems to be off the rails completely. Better play along and be supportive. Who knows what he is going through in real life? Momonga knew of Tabula's obsession with the occult. He had suffered through so many of Tabula's lectures and long ramblings in the past. The man just loved to talk about things that interested him, but far too few were willing to indulge in his rather weird hobbies. Because of his politeness, Momonga usually let Tabula just ramble, even when other players left him alone with Tabula. Sure, I don't mind. They are your creations, after all. Do you want me to come along or do you need privacy? I would be honored if you would accompany me, as I have some additional requests about them that would involve your avatar, the ruler of the Great Tomb of Nazareth. Sure. By the way, your old gear is still in the treasury. Do you want to put it back on? Tabula looked down, then back to Momonga, saying. I don't really need it, but some robes for this form would be nice. I also urge you to change the NPCs you wish to change. If no other player has come to claim their creation, then it should fall on your shoulders to send them off. Oh, I did create an NPC. I think I could change a thing or two in his settings, replied Momonga, handing Tabula Smaragdina a ring of Ainzul gown. Should I change Pandora? I mean, I do cringe when I see him, but I thought he was cool when I made him, maybe a few little things. I wouldn't want Tabula to think that what he is doing is too weird. Momonga was unsure if he even wanted to tamper with his own creation, but each time he had to face his creation, his chuny past reared its ugly head. Both were standing in Nazarik's treasury mere moments later. Pandora performed the standard routine by getting up and walking up to them with a salute. I created him to guard the treasury. Give the ring of Ainzul gown to him before you go deeper in, otherwise the statues will attack you. Momonga instructed his friend. Thank you for the warning. So this is your son. Interesting. I'll leave you two for a moment to pick something to wear. Tabula quickly removed the ring, putting it in the guardian's hand, and disappeared deeper into the treasury, leaving Momonga alone with his creation. Momonga opened Pandora's actor's settings and read them while talking to himself. Speaking German, well, I could erase that, but the feeling that he was about to make a life-changing decision crept up. I think I will just tone down his theatrics a bit and that's all. Nevertheless, him acting silly to fool enemies and appearing incompetent sounds kinda fun and would be useful. Well, at least his uniform looks cool. There was no real purpose for changing Pandora in the last 2 days, only a deep nagging feeling that something important was about to happen didn't leave. Finally, Tabula returned dressed in a purple robe with a golden lining. So, where do we start? Momonga asked the Brain Eater. I think with Negretto. I would like to change her appearance as well. Hearing that Tabula seriously wanted to alter his creations, not just change the flavor text, Momonga became too curious to just let it pass. By the way, why do you want to do this? I mean, you haven't been online for 2 years and now in the last 2 days you want to make such changes. How to explain this? In short, Momonga, I believe Nazarik will move on to another plane after the servers shut down. I already sense changes in them, and you, for that matter. I know you do not believe in the same things as me, even so, you wanted to gather all of Ainzul gown for one last time for the send-off. So, I think it means a lot to you as well. Even if we never know what happens, I want to send my daughters off the best way I can. Tabula said, speaking like a father about to watch his children leave the family home. He really believes it. Fuck it, I'll just play along. If nothing else, it is a nice thing to believe that our avatars and NPCs will live somewhere else. Momonga couldn't help but go along with Tabula's explanations. I guess that makes sense. I have the doll so we can disable the trap and you can alter Negretto. Momonga pulled out of his inventory a crude wooden doll that resembled a human baby. The first of Tabula's creations, Negretto dwelled in a special room on the 5th floor's frozen prison. Momonga held in front of him the doll that was necessary to disable Negretto and went into her room with Tabula. Negretto followed their movements, not taking her eyes off the doll. Once Momonga put the doll in the crib, Negretto grabbed it and started cradling it like a child, as her programming dictated her to do. When Tabula designed this room, he was in his horror movie phase and loved to make horror scenarios. Negretto's looks bore some similarities to her younger sisters, Rubedo and Albedo. The difference was that she had no skin on her face and she didn't have any angelic or demonic features as her sisters did. Her race was a physical phantom, an undead race that could switch back and forth between human and specter forms. She was programmed to attack anyone when her baby doll wasn't around, making a trap for unwitting invaders. However, she was only level 85 and thus was incapable of killing a prepared max-level player. Tabula started with her appearance. He had already bought some of the assets he needed and could easily replace Negretto's skinless face with one rather similar to another of his creations. She looks just like Albedo, only with blue eyes and no horns. Momonga observed the Brain Eater work. With the visual changes finished, the Brain Eater opened the flavor text panel and rewrote her settings. I don't want her to have a tormented and restrictive life. She will not be obsessed with the doll. Tabula said, giving Negretto's cheek a gentle stroke. I hope you don't mind. No, she is your creation, you can make whatever changes you like, Momonga replied, watching the text and programming code change. Negredo changed from a vengeful spirit obsessed with her dead child and thinking the doll was her long-lost daughter to a woman deeply caring for her two sisters and considering the protection of Nazarick as her sacred duty. Momonga spoke out. You know, this room doesn't function as a trap for intruders anymore now. Maybe add some lines that she will still attack intruders and fiercely protect her home. It shouldn't be a problem. She would still attack any intruder and ignore friendly targets. Tabula said. I need to set this up as best I can, but Momonga will not understand. I hope he will just play along as always. Tabula was well aware that his friend didn't believe him, but then again even most of his real-life friends didn't take the spiritual life seriously. You know, considering that you were the only one taking care of them, they are more yours than mine at this point. If it's okay with you, I would like their flavor text to reflect it as well. Sure I guess. As I said, you can change it however you want. That is the guild rule and it doesn't matter how long you have been away. I want to write that all my daughters love your avatar. I hope you don't mind. No, not at all. If this is some kind of prank from him I will. No, Tabula usually doesn't joke around. Does he really believe they would live on in some form? He talked about a lot of weird and esoteric stuff. If only I had paid more attention to it. Maybe Tabula lost all his marbles. I want Nazarick to live on more than everyone, but the game will end in 2 days with all the server data likely stored away in some dusty storage room. As Tabula was tinkering with the text, he spoke up again. I have another request to make. Okay. Momonga's response gave away a hint of nervousness. Can I ask you to write that Momonga also loves them? I know he is an overlord and is not supposed to feel powerful emotions, but that would put my mind at ease. Tabula opened his own backstory panel and added a line that he fully entrusted his daughters to Momonga. I guess there is no harm in that, Momonga replied, opening his character screen and writing that Momonga holds all 3 sisters in a special place in his non-existing heart. He glanced at Negredo, and her neutral expression changed to a warmer one. She even seemingly smiled at him. He was ready to write it off as usual if not for Tabula giving him a knowing nod, as if saying, I can see it too. Was this really happening or were they both going crazy? Momonga recalled only bits and pieces of many things Tabula had said about his beliefs, and from that perspective, even digital characters would have some sort of soul. As an atheist, Momonga had written off all these small, strange occurrences as mere imagination. That nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe Tabula was onto something didn't leave him. What if those small weird occurrences weren't just in his head? At Tabula's request, they walked to their next destination. He wanted to give Nazarick a good look. Both walked in silence with Tabula lost deep in his thoughts. Everything was just like I remember. When I logged in, I thought I would see Nazarick in disrepair with half of the NPCs missing. Momonga truly loves this place. To log in and find the guild pretty much unchanged was a huge relief, especially after seeing that the only 2 members that have been online in the last year were Momonga and Pero Roncino, who had logged out recently. So you and Pero were the last to remain? He asked. Pero returned only a few hours ago. I was by myself for the last few months. His bitterness seeped through once again. Catching himself before going into a rant, he hastily added. Keeping Nazarick in one piece wasn't that hard really. Alone, if only you were more open to what I could have taught you, Tabula mused. Once one peered behind the veil, there was always someone to keep company even to the loneliest of souls. I don't know if it will be just my avatar that moves on or if I will follow, but this place belongs to Momonga. I know he will take great care of them and the rest of the NPCs even if Suzuki's soul stays on Earth. Their next stop was Rubedo on the 8th floor, Nazarick's secret weapon. Rubedo looked almost like a typical angel, with long blonde hair and bright green eyes. What stood out were her metallic wings, one metallic arm, and metallic spikes coming out of her skin on her back and shoulders. She had an expressionless face, a reminder that she was, in fact, a golem. She wore a red dress and some of her metallic body parts were decorated in scarlet color. Maybe I could finally find out how Tabula made her. Momonga's curiosity about how she was made spiked up, but the fear of a few-hour lecture on abstract topics prevented him from asking the Brain Eater how he had done it. The only thing he knew was that a world-level item was involved in her creation. That was the reason for Rubedo's stats being so high that the rest of the floor guardians combined could barely stop her. When it came to creating characters, Tabula often liked to make them with contradictory traits, and Rubedo was no exception. She was an angel of the highest order that was meant to become a fallen one, but due to an error or her personality, she was stuck somewhere in between. Not quite an angel nor fallen. Her personality was very introverted and defensive when dealing with friends and allies, but vicious and aggressive when someone she cared for was in danger. Tabula left it in but added that she only fully trusted Momonga, adding the same love line as he did for Negredo. Momonga just looked silently as Tabula worked, and seeing that she would still be loyal to him, at least, didn't make him worry that something could go seriously wrong on the last day of the game. Rubedo's expression didn't change, staying neutral and expressionless. Their last stop was the throne room, where the guardian overseer Albedo, the middle sister, stood by the throne. Tabula approached her, opened her settings, and after some reading, mumbled. I made her a slut, how cliché for a succubus. This is clearly going away. He erased it. The line Momonga disliked the most was quickly removed as the brain eater tapped his fingers on the UI panel, thinking of what to write as a replacement. She's just like my Mari, who would seek a partner who appreciates her. Maybe I should, yes, that's it. But I have to ask Momonga for his consent. Tabula decided what to do with the middle daughter. Would it be okay if I made her fall in love with your avatar? I think it kind of fits since she stood by your throne for so long as your assistant. It was a good thing his character couldn't blush. Momonga stuttered in his reply, I'm not sure, but I guess it's okay. Are you sure you want to write that in? Tabula chuckled in response. Oh, my friend, I think she has been by your throne for a long time, and it fits so great that a virgin succubus, despite her succubus nature, had fallen in love with the leader of Nazarick and wished nothing more than to be at his side. I can't think of a better send-off to my daughter than that. He spoke like a proud father giving away his daughter to someone he trusted. Momonga felt silent for a moment. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't come up with anything to refute that. Finally, he caved in and agreed with Tabula, letting him change Albedo's setting to be in love with him. After finishing editing Albedo's settings and promising to log in before the servers are shut down, Tabula Smaragdina logged off. Momonga checked the clock and realized that it was close to midnight already, and he had to log off too. He needed to get at least some sleep before work. Before doing so, he glanced at Albedo and had a feeling that Albedo's expression had changed, a warmer smile on her face, and her eyes seemingly looked at him. She looks so much more. I really need some sleep before I lose my marbles as well. Momonga told himself and logged off. The last day of Yggdrasil had come. Satoru logged in as usual and with a sigh, awaited the last day of the game. He knew that at least a few people would show up and that he didn't have to witness the end of his home alone. Momonga sat in the conference room and tinkered with his insanely large inventory while waiting for others to show up. With such a distraction, it was easy to lose track of time. Only a notification on the guild member panel pulled him out of the task. Ulbert Alon Odal has logged in. Oh, Ulbert made it. I hope he is doing okay. Momonga quickly teleported to the conference room, where he was met with the sight of a demon goat sitting in a chair. Covered from head to toe in black fur, he sported 2 regular goat horns. If not for his main race being a demon, most would think he was playing a beastman race. Ulbert reacted to his friend's arrival by waving his hand. Hey, Momo. I'm here to witness the end of days. Ulbert, I'm so glad to see you. How have you been? I am doing fine. Well, as fine as I can. Ulbert said, seemingly out of breath. His voice sounded weak, as if every word took a great effort. It wasn't hard for Momonga to notice how strained his voice sounded. In the few emails they exchanged, Ulbert avoided talking about details of his health, but a few tidbits slipped through. The pain he was in was getting unbearable. Seeing that his friend didn't buy his answer, Ulbert said, let's not talk about it. We have the end of the world to wait for. I will be fine till the end of the day. He got free government-issued medication this month. They made him drowsy and lethargic, but at least kept the pain at tolerable levels. In preparation for one last time spent with friends, he took only half a dose to be more lucid. This fucking pain. It's better to be lucid and have one last nice memory before lights out. I hope I don't kick the bucket before midnight. It would suck for them to witness me dying. All he hoped was not to die before midnight and say proper goodbyes to his friends in the game he was forced to stop playing because of his cancer's progression. Momonga walked up to him, handing out the ring of Ain's Ul gown, and asked with a chuckle, so you want to put on your old gear, or want to be the nudist of the group? You still have it. Of course, I kept all the gear that was entrusted to me for safekeeping. It was painfully obvious what Momonga meant. He waited for me to come back. Why? We weren't even such good friends. Moments later, Ulbert was equipping his gear in the treasury, taking off his gear from the statue that somewhat resembles him. A pitch-black formal suit with golden accessories, a top hat of the same color, and a red and gold mask covering the right half of his face resembling one plague doctors once wore. Additionally, he had a flowing red robe that formed massive clawed arms from time to time ready to grab his opponents. And of course the leather gloves with long blades for fingers. There was one such statue for each member of the guild, and most of them, apart from Pero Roncino, were in their counterparts' gear. First, he wanted to ask what happened to Pero Roncino's gear, but then he remembered seeing in the guild list that he had logged out just 15 hours ago, so it made sense that, same as Albert, he claimed his gear back. Albert finished equipping all the pieces and then announced with his signature evil laughter, "Oh yeah, the grand catastrophe is back." Returning to the entrance area, he took a better look around, seeing the enormous piles of unsorted items. Where did all that come from? Momonga quickly retold what he already explained to Pero Roncino yesterday. Albert listened with an envious emoji over his head during the whole explanation. Damn, man, I wish I could have played with you. These last months sound like a hell of a lot of fun. He said once Momonga had finished. Your creativity would have helped to get back at some of those guilds. Momonga chuckled. While Albert and Momonga were catching up, Pero Roncino and DukeCheburek logged in. Both the demon goat and the overlord went to greet the two returning friends. Hey Momo, hey Albert. Buku said in a high-pitched, bubbly voice. Can I get my ring and gear back as well? The chicken has his gear, and I don't want to be left out. The ever-moving red slime greeted them. Unlike her friends, her avatar didn't need any sort of underwear as of now, save for flavor text stating that she was a female, didn't have any gender traits, and her form was that of a formless goo. No amount of gear will make you look good. Puro laughed and poked his sister. Fuck you, like your malnourished chicken avatar was any. Buku's voice dropped for at least an octave. Ahem, here you go. Momonga interrupted the sibling squabble and handed Buku the ring. While Buku went to the treasury for her gear, Puro used the opportunity to bitch that, lately, it was near impossible to find a hentai game without his sister voicing at least one character, and he has been forced to resort to older classics for his cultural needs. Both Albert and Momonga patted Pero Roncino on the back while laughing at his torment of being the brother of a famous voice actress in the genre. Making things worse was the fact that Puro had a special thing for lowly characters, and his sister specialized in them because of her ability to speak in a childish voice. Buku came back looking pretty much the same since all her gear was internal and didn't change her red slime-like avatar. The only difference was the floating orbs within her. She immediately asked with her most bubbly voice. Big brother Momonga, how have you been? I hope you haven't forgotten about your future waifu Buku. This was her usual tease, that if he finally didn't man up and take a girlfriend, she would just take it upon herself to take away his rumored wizard powers. How could I possibly forget about you, my lady? Momonga responded in a mock voice. Buku had always been flirty with him. She first started doing it just to annoy her little brother by hitting on his best friend and to tease Momonga over his inexperience, but over time, they became good friends. Thanks to her, Momonga had at least some experience in how to talk to women. At some point he did develop feelings for her, but with him never acting upon them, they faded over time with only their friendship remaining. Buku always was a confident and outgoing woman who likely would not settle for someone like him anyway. As usual, Pero Roncino couldn't pass up an opportunity to mock his sister and chipped in saying, don't force yourself on our glorious leader. Nazarick is full of hotter waifus than you. Albert, Momonga, you will have to provide my alibi after I murder my bird brain of a brother, Buku growled. Easy now, I'm just joking sis. Feel free to steal Momonga from us for a while, there are still a few hours left till midnight. Puro raised his hands. Momonga flashed a smiley emoji and offered DukeCheburek to go for a walk on the 6th floor, to which she happily agreed. If I catch both of you banging in the bushes, I will be pretty fucking mad. Puro shouted after them. Skeleton and slime smut is going to pay for view sites if we catch you. Albert joined in. It was under an evening sky when they both appeared on the 6th floor. It was a forested area near the home of Aura and Mare. Buku thought for a moment if she wanted to go see her creations, but for some reason decided against it. They would soon be gone anyway, and it would only remind her of all the fun she had playing with them, making the last moments of the game that much harder. Momo, I wanted to thank you for sending the invitation. With life being what it is, it's nice to remember better times when we could goof off and share moments here. She said in her normal speaking voice with a somber tone. Their memories, they would still have all the memories of this place, and no one could take those away. Many people had moved on. There were more important things to worry about than fantasy. Life hit hard and didn't spare most of them. Momonga sat in silence looking at the sky. Buku had gone silent as well. She wanted to vent to Momonga and tell him all the shit that was going on in her life, but she couldn't. Her pride didn't let her. Instead, she decided to do what she has done far too often with no success. You know Momo, I have a single friend. A quiet girl that likes to play games and read. Buku, you know how it is. Come on, you are a decent guy, and I can guarantee you would like her. Plus she has a 10 out of 10 butt. Buku pressed her sales pitch harder. Okay, I could give it a try. He gave in. It wasn't the first time she tried to set him up with one of her friends, but somehow it never amounted to anything. Good, I will send you an email tomorrow. Even you can get it together in a written form. I will try. You better, otherwise you will have to marry me. Buku said in the most threatening voice she could muster. I don't see how that is a threat. Momonga said with a chuckle. You know that let's forget it for today. Sure. She was such a confident woman before. At least she has her brother, maybe I could offer to help her and Puro. With nothing better to do, he could pay them a visit every few days. After all, both lived only about 2 hours walk away from him. Buku looked up to the artificial sky wanting to forget her life if only for just a moment. It was already nighttime and the stars were out. There were no such clear nights in real life. In fact, the only way to know how clear the sky once looked was through pictures and videos from the past. Blue Planet did such a wonderful job creating it, said Momonga absently, lost in his own thoughts. The man who played a stone-like nature elemental loved nature and used every opportunity to recreate it in digital settings. But like everyone else, he had to leave the game to prioritize real life. Yes he did, this sky is beautiful, replied Buku as they both just stared at the sky for a while. Tabula interrupted their serene moment by logging in. Momonga looked at the watch. It was 23:30 already. Just half an hour left. Both of them teleported to the conference room where Ulbert, Peroroncino, and Tabula chatted about their lives. Tabula was rambling about how Nazarick will move on to the new plane and both Ulbert and Puro did their best to not fall asleep. Momonga spoke up, saving his friends from the torment that was Tabula's ramblings. I wanted to say, thank you all for coming one last time. It's the last hour of Nazarick so I would like to hear your ideas on how to spend it. Before anyone could respond, another player popped up. The black viscous slime bubbled in one of the chairs belonging to the player called Hiro. Hey, sorry for the late drop-in, but I needed to work. He told with a long yawn. Hey, you made it as well. Puro greeted him immediately. How have you been? Hiro broke out into a rant about being horribly overworked and every other day just sleeping in the office. About a few minutes in, he stopped and said apologetically. I'm sorry, I didn't come to rant about my life. I wanted to wish you all to have fun during the last minutes of the game. You are not staying? Momonga asked, a little saddened that his friend couldn't stay longer. I'm sorry but I'm already falling asleep. I'll catch you all in the next one. Who knows, maybe the shitty devs will make Yggdrasil too. Hiro said with another yawn. You poor thing. Get a good rest, okay? Buku said to her fellow slime player. I'll try. Thank you, Buku. He said with a bit more enthusiasm. It was nice to see that at least some players came back. Have fun. Hiro said and logged off. That sounded rough, Puro remarked. Yeah. I hope he doesn't work himself to death. Buku said. Not only him, Puro said. Please, not now. Buku dropped her voice again. Let's get back to the game. So what are we going to do for the last few minutes? How about you take the guild staff, we all gather in the throne room and make our avatars stand as the last bosses. We always had that as a plan in case anyone reached the throne room. Ulbert suggested. Seeing that others agree with Ulbert, Momonga took the staff of Ain's Ul gown and equipped it as the guild leader should before the last battle. They all walked to the throne room to enjoy the last time seeing the overly luxurious heart of their guild home. With Momonga in the lead, they approached the gigantic door leading to the throne room. Momonga looked at the immobile golems guarding it. If they suddenly attack me, Lucifer will get a strongly worded letter. Still salty about his last prank? Puro asked. There were a few more after that one. Momonga hissed and opened the door to the throne room as his friends let out a few laughs at his expense. It was a well-known fact that the player named Lucifer was a prankster and had set up various traps for his guildmates. Momonga had fallen into one such trap when a guard golem attacked him without provocation. The doors opened, and the throne room came into view. Hundreds of people could easily fit in it. The way to the throne is covered with a luxurious red carpet. A throne room fit for true rulers. With Momonga in the lead, they approached the throne where Albedo stood unmoving with a gentle smile on her face. Tabula stared at Albedo intently when they finally gathered around the throne. Buku, curious as to why Tabula was watching his creation with such intensity, glanced at the Guardian Overseer. Albedo's eyes clearly followed Momonga. Has he put in code for her to do that? I don't remember NPCs having that type of animation. She observed the NPCs, odd behavior. After all, even when most players were active, many had called Albedo Momonga's waifu behind his back. Momonga of course vehemently denied how much he liked the Guardian Overseer. He was gone for the full digital route. Whatever floats his boat, I guess. Buku shrugged. Momo, sit. A guild leader should sit in his rightful place, Buku told him in a cheerful voice, and despite Momonga's protests, pushed him onto the throne. Tabula continued staring at Albedo now, murmuring. She is already changing, as he said. Tabula, buddy, you alright? Pero Roncino asked Tabula while putting a hand on his shoulder. I'm fine, this all feels weird, as if something big will happen. Something will happen to us. It won't be just the avatars, we ourselves will, he then snapped out of it, reminding them it was the last 5 minutes of Yggdrasil. Tabula, you seem shaken, are you sure everything is fine? This time it was Momonga who asked. He also felt incredibly sad to see his home go, but Tabula seems more afraid and confused than sad. Tabula replied. I'm fine. Be ready. It's about to happen. What will happen? Momonga asked. Let's just wait a few more minutes. If anyone feels that they shouldn't be here, please log out now. Tabul moved his gaze over all the people present. Buddy, whatever stuff you are on, you should go easy on it. Puro shook his head. Never mind. 1 more minute. They made their choice. I did warn them. It is happening already. Tabula took a long inhale. The last minute came, then the last seconds as they waited for the end. The end of the game had finally come. 23 hours 59 minutes and 55 seconds. 23 hours 59 minutes and 56 seconds. 23 hours 59 minutes and 57 seconds. 23 hours 59 minutes and 58 seconds. 23 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Moment of darkness. 0 hours 0 minutes and 1 second. 0 hours 0 minutes and 2 seconds. 0 hours 0 minutes and 3 seconds. And the numbers just faded off, but all 5 were still present in the throne room. Bonus Story 1 Tabula's Dream. Tabula was tossing in his bed, restlessly. He had received an email from Satoru or Momonga. Yggdrasil was shutting down in 2 weeks, and his old guild master had invited him to one last gathering. Tabula had almost forgotten about the game, but one thing bugged him. He and Mariposa had made 3 characters there in her image. Their daughters, so to speak. Mariposa, being his spiritual wife, was not bound to the physical realm, but she too held a certain affection for the digital characters. He wanted to ask her opinion, but Mariposa was sent on some errand by her superior and promised to return in a few days. Tabula finally decided to do some astral travel and maybe find out what was bothering him so much. He laid down on the bed and slipped into a trance, soon leaving his body. Right away, he felt a pull or call in a certain direction and knew he needed to follow it. Soon enough, he ended up in a beautiful garden. A man was sitting by a white wooden table with a large, white silk parasol over it, sipping tea in a refined manner. The man noticed him and motioned for Tabula to join him at the table. Tabula accepted the invite, sitting down as a teacup appeared on the table in front of him. Not wanting to be rude, he accepted the offer and took a sip. The warm liquid gave an instant sense of ease and calmness. Hello, Tabula, you seem troubled. The man gave him a friendly smile. Yes, I guess you know why. Tabula responded with a polite nod. You worry about them even though you do not believe them to be real. We both know better, don't we? Mariposa and I made them, and they will be gone soon. I know they are just digital information, unlike our 2 spiritual daughters, but something is bothering me and I can't place what it is. I am aware that even digital creations can remain as a spiritual presence if enough thought energy is put into them. I feel that something, intangible, something different awaits them. With Tabula never marrying on Earth, he and Mariposa had decided to create new spirits in a union. For her kind, it was the same as giving birth to children, even if the whole conception took minutes, not 9 months. Their 2 succubi daughters of course soon left their parents to seek out fates of their own. But from time to time both visited him in either dreams or during astral projection. If you call them your daughters, you believe that some part of them is more than discardable thought forms. Souls are forming, their awareness growing. The man took a sip from his cup. But what can I do? The servers will be shut down. They will be erased before I can help them be free. Tabula let out a sigh. I would like for them to live on as independent beings. Tabula, you already know better than to write it off as just an end. The server's shutdown will be a beginning, the man spoke in a casual, friendly tone. Tabula was silent for a moment. This being knew something and was not telling it intentionally. Tabula knew the rules. Ask and you will receive the answer, but he still needs to figure out what to ask. Will some big change happen to them? I feel they will not just be erased and their remains scattered as memories in the astral realm. Yes, something big will happen. What should I do? That is your decision, not mine. Can you give me advice? Think how you want to send them off, what core values you want them to have, who will look after them. With that, everything clicked. Momonga will stay until the last moment, his avatar will stay with them. Momonga always cared for Nazarick more than anyone else. Tabula recalled him saying that Nazarick is his actual home and Earth is just a distraction. In what state he would find his creations and the old guild base was hard to tell, but if Suzuki sent an invite to have one last gathering, the guild base likely was intact. He knew what to do, but there was something still bugging him, so he asked once more. What will happen to them once the server shuts down? Where will they go? Different world. The greed of an ignorant beast will make them more real than you can imagine. A cryptic answer, for sure. This entity is purposely cryptic. I should be wary of him. Whoever he was, this entity had taken a rather unassuming form. I need to find out more. What should I ask to get a straight answer? Tabula grew frustrated. He needed to think fast about how to get answers, so he went straight for the deal and asked. What do you want for guiding me to the path of the greatest benefits for me and my daughters in this situation? It's simple. What I want is for you to stay in Nazarick until the end. Doing so will also give you what you seek. What will happen if I stay in the game till its end? Great things. Can you give me a more precise answer? Tabula asked, growing impatient. The shift of reality. You should know better to ask questions that affect decisions. Tabula tried to peer deeper into the entity's being but immediately hit a wall, or more precisely he could not detect anything. Even the most insignificant spirit had presence while this being had none, as if he didn't even exist. Having a gut feeling that the being in front of him was someone with power beyond his understanding, already knowing how it will play out, Tabula decided to not provoke any sort of negative action from this being. Will you guide me after the event as well? Tabula asked, feeling that if he stays till the last moment he will go with Nazarick and his life on Earth will end. I will when I'm needed. I won't abandon those who choose to ask for help from me, but know this, I will not come when you can be fine without me. You will receive my help when it's needed, don't use it in vain. Thank you. Master. There is one more thing. Can I ask for your name so I know who to call? My name is not important, I will know when to come and help. With that, Tabula suddenly opened his eyes and sat up in his bed. He knew what needed to be done. Bonus story 2 Change of heart. Albedo stood, unmoving. No one had told her to move, so she didn't. That's how it worked, just stand there and smile until ordered to do something else. Lord Momonga came as he did most of the days and sat down on the throne, where she was standing. Looks like it's just us, both hard at work again. He said. Lord Momonga was so kind to her. She wanted to thank him but the command to do so didn't come, so she just stood smiling her usual gentle smile. Albedo watched as he worked on the Great Tomb's finances and daily maintenance. She wanted to tell him it was her job and hoped he would give her the order to do it, but, like always, the order didn't come. Albedo watched and listened to how Lord Momonga talked to her. He was sad that the other Supreme Ones had left. She hated them. They left him alone. They made Lord Momonga suffer alone. It wasn't the first time he said it. Almost daily he would complain to her about how all of them left, and she grew to hate them. Even her own creator. He left. She hated him for leaving. Then something happened. Lord Peroroncino returned. Lord Momonga was so happy. They went somewhere. Did he take Lord Momonga? Was she all alone now? Rage and panic filled her mind. She stood and waited. And waited. They came back once again to the throne room, made funny poses, laughed together. She was happy to see her lord enjoying himself for once. Then they left, so Albedo just stood and waited again, like she always did. Then her creator Lord Tabula Smaragdina came into the throne room with Lord Momonga. What was happening? Did the Supreme Ones return one by one? To her horror, her creator wanted to change her. What will he do to her? The fear filled her digital heart. But then something wonderful happened. Lord Tabula gave her new feelings, warm, wonderful feelings. Her hate for her creator faded as she felt love for Lord Momonga. Her creator had given her to Lord Momonga and Lord Momonga had accepted her as his lover. She loved Lord Momonga with all her heart, and Lord Momonga accepted it. She was so excited and overjoyed that she didn't even notice that everyone left. So she just stood and waited like she always did. But the warm feeling didn't fade away. Proofreading by Visor Nixon Rotten Pizza, Toffrel, sad_smiles, and detract. 4 comments 0 vote. Chapter 3 Guardians. All 5 players looked around in mild confusion. Usually when the servers were shut down, players would just return to either the VR Gear's default loading panel or the game's title screen. Momonga raised his hand to try using the UI, but for some reason, there was no response. Did they fuck up the shutdown? Why, I'm not surprised. I sometimes wonder how devs don't forget to breathe. Pero Roncino was the first to speak up. The shitty devs did it again and managed to fuck up the closing of the servers. His voice sounded unfamiliar. It was higher than his usual one but sounded strong and powerful. Hey, what happened to your voice? His sister Buku asked. Huh. Mine is different as well. Her gelatinous form bubbled in shock. Something has gone wrong, Momonga said, spooked by his now much deeper and more regal voice. He quickly tried to contact a GM with the message function but got no response. The GM is not responding as well. Supreme Ones, is something wrong? An unfamiliar voice asked. It took them a few seconds to register the owner of the voice, but one by one they turned to Albedo, who was now kneeling in front of them. Did she just speak? Albert asked, with his tone loud and agitated. Albedo's face twisted in panic as she switched from kneeling to full-on prostrating before them and, sounding close to crying, frantically tried to explain herself. Please forgive me for speaking out of line, it was not my intention to interrupt. She is far too animated for an NPC. Could this be an illegal update? Why am I so calm? Come to think of it, my senses are much sharper. Albert is starting to get sweaty. I guess that is normal with such stress, I can smell things. Suddenly his emotions were crushed down to the tranquility of calm indifference. Momonga, despite the bizarre situation, felt calmer than he ever remembered feeling. He looked around seeing his comrades in agitated states, which was rather normal considering the current situation. His calmness on the other hand was odd. This forceful calming, it's almost like, could we really be unwitting test subjects of the next general VR experience? Momonga tried to contact GM staff once again but no one responded. I guess the next best set of actions is to just assess the situation and, my vocabulary has changed. I'm fairly sure I didn't even know some of the words I'm using now. Deciding to use his current calm state, he took over the situation and addressed Albedo, who was still prostrating with her forehead touching the throne room's polished stone ground. Albedo, please calm down, you have done nothing wrong. Albert was merely surprised that you spoke up to us. None of us remember you doing so before. You may rise. He addressed the prostrating winged woman with a calm, authoritative tone. How natural it felt to issue the command. Being calm and authoritative would be something my avatar would do. Isekai. No, that's just too silly of an idea to entertain for now. There was no way to answer the question, so for now he was determined to act out as the leader and go with the flow. Albedo looked up at him, returning to a kneeling position. Lord Momonga was right. She never had spoken like this to them. Was it too forward of me? The Supreme Ones do not seem angry at me. But he did promise to love me to my creator Lord Tabula Smaragdina, so there is the chance he is. No, someone as wise as Lord Momonga would not show such blatant favoritism toward me. Why are the Supreme Ones so confused? Has something gone wrong? At least my beloved Lord Momonga is calm and in control. I must assist him however I can. Albedo exhaled slowly, forcing herself to be calm and collected. While the commotion was happening around him, Tabula looked at his creation, seeing the changes. We were all recreated in our new forms. My suspicion came true. My daughter. Her aura is so strong. He was experiencing reality with much higher awareness. This awareness let him see what had happened to Albedo. The aura around her is so potent, she stands like a shining dark star. She is real now. My daughter is real. Tabula exclaimed. What the hell do you mean, what's going on? Asked Buku in a panicked voice. With a voice just as frantic, Tabula answered, don't you feel it, your body, the sensations, smell, vision. How it all feels. We became our avatars. Avatars. I have never gazed upon the true forms of Supreme Ones. Of course, a mere servant would not be able to even perceive their true unfathomable power. I guess that answers the question of why they are so agitated. Albedo observed, not only her creator, but other Supreme Ones as well. Buku was silent for a moment and then just said, I can see in all directions at once, that can't be possible. Please someone tell me this is just a fever dream. Her slime form vibrated, sending small waves all over it. Supreme Ones, has something gone wrong? Can I help somehow? Albedo asked with eagerness behind the question. Momonga started to freak out as well, but his agitation was crushed almost instantly. With renewed calmness, he once again assessed the situation. Tabula is saying that this was real now. That explains how I am getting my undead buff activated all the time and sensing it is real. I can't blame my friends or even Albedo for being so stressed about our current circumstances. All his thought processes flowed with such a speed that an entire book's worth of ideas could be compiled before anyone even blinked around him. With his mind now working at the speed of light, he came to a conclusion. I need to test the environment to be absolutely sure that this is the reality now. Let's just figure everything out now, Albedo. Please come here, Momonga said, still sitting on his throne. Albedo jumped to her feet and responded with a radiant smile, of course, Lord Momonga. As she ran up to him, almost pushing her impressive rack into the Overlord's skeletal face. Albedo, may I touch you? Momonga asked, barely keeping his voice from breaking. This request alone was borderline inappropriate, but as an NPC her reactions needed to be tested. Albedo responded with a wide smile exclaiming, yes my lord. Touch me however you like. Albedo's cleavage was so close to his skeletal face that he could see her breasts moving with each breath she took. Her fragrance assaulted his sharp smell. Her perfect lips were curved into a smile and her big yellow cat-like eyes looked down at him longingly. As someone who didn't interact with women save for short exchanges in work-on-work related topics, her presence was overwhelming, to say the least. I can do this. It's just a touch. Momonga gently touched Albedo's wrist with 2 fingers. She winced in pain but didn't pull her arm away. I forgot to turn off negative touch. Upon realizing his mistake, Momonga let go of her immediately. A small black patch now decorated her wrist. He quickly turned off his passive effect and apologized. I'm sorry, I forgot my negative touch was active. I didn't mean to cause you pain. Albedo bit her lower lip and replied in a soothing voice, don't worry my beloved, I will bear any pain for you. Her words were enough to snap both Peroroncino and Bukubukuchigama out of their shocked state, exclaiming in unison, beloved. Momonga turned to stare at his friends in mute horror, remembering what Tabul wrote in Albedo's settings. He tried to explain but only a stutter came out, I'll explain everything. Tabula came to the rescue, dragging both siblings aside together with Ulbert to explain what he had done with Momonga's permission. While his friends were whispering among themselves, he felt another forceful calming down which gave him the opportunity to return to the task at hand. Albedo, please check Nazarik's systems and confirm that everything functions, Momonga ordered Albedo to see how she would respond to orders. Even if she was made to love him, there was a chance she would not follow direct orders. On top of that, she needed to be distracted from the current situation. His friends already were distracted by Tabula and hushed discussion of what he had done to his NPCs. I need to get us in private. NPC loyalty needs to be checked. They may consider us their superiors, but we are humans, we were humans just moments ago. Does the message function still work? He needed to check it right away. Some secrecy was definitely needed. Can you hear me? Was the first message he sent to all of them, and after getting a positive answer from all of them he continued. Albedo has a pulse, scent, and body warmth, and seeing her act like a person all but confirms that this is real somehow. I will give her some tasks to get her off our backs so we can get to the conference room and figure out what is going on. Seeing no opposition to his statement, he turned to Albedo again, seeing her working though Nazarik's panels with lightning speed, and asked, is everything functioning normally? He asked Albedo to see how fast she would go through all the stats. I don't see any discrepancies in Nazarik's functions, Lord Momonga. She replied, adding, the Great Tomb at the moment is following the standard operation protocol and all sentient NPCs responded to my request to report their current situation. Should I provide a detailed report? Momonga cursed a bit inside. Damn, she works fast. I thought she would be distracted for at least 20 minutes. Well, we still needed to find out what was going on outside Nazarik as well, so maybe I can give her some additional tasks. Excellent, Albedo. Set Nazarik's defenses to the maximum level for now and send out. Who to send out? The floor guardians were out of the question, same as Albedo, but a weak force could be wiped out right away. It left him with only one option. Send out Sebas with 2 Pleiades assisting him. He is to observe surroundings within a 5-kilometer radius, and if he encounters intelligent or hostile life, he is to return immediately. Please monitor Nazarik for any irregularities and report immediately if anything changes. My friends and I will go to the conference room to discuss future actions to take. Understood, Lord Momonga. It shall be done, Albedo replied with a professional tone and returned to observing numerous, floating transparent panels. He then motioned for his friends to follow and teleported to the conference room. One by one the players arrived at the conference room and sat down in their designated spots. Considering the enormous size of the round table, they were sitting a considerable distance from one another. Puro and Buku particularly sat on opposite sides of the table. Thank God. Momonga didn't crap his pants like most of us and handled that like a true guild leader. Buku was the first to speak up. Yeah, us being stuck here and seeing talking Albedo was a bit too much. So, any ideas what's going on? Pero Roncino chipped in. I think I was only calm because of my now undead form. When I start to panic, I'm just calmed down forcibly by my own passive ability that I couldn't turn off. Momonga explained his level-headed demeanor in the throne room. Tabula stood up from his chair and after clearing his throat spoke in a very deep, guttural voice. This is our reality now, your auras, your energy radiates out of you and me, like we are akin to gods. My own senses have risen to levels I didn't believe possible. It also seems that my mind works much faster than before. I know it's much to take in, but we have been given a chance to be much more than we were before. What do you mean, your mind working faster? Albert asked. Since midnight his main assumption was that his body gave out and he was in some sort of last-moment fever dream. Of course, that idea was already discarded and current Tabula's explanation was the one he decided to cling to as the best possible outcome of what had happened. How much is 5,864 x 32,577? Asked Tabula to no one in particular. Albert was the first to answer. 191,031,528, it's still. It only took a fraction of a second for Albert to realize that he just multiplied insane numbers instantly and the rest of them not only knew it was the right answer but also that Albert answered correctly. So, we are now much more than just regular humans. I still feel like myself, I think, but my senses are much sharper. Half asked, half confirmed Momonga. I, for one, don't want to be a walking pile of slimy flesh. No amount of power will convince me to stay like this. Buku announced. I think one of the Pleiades, maids, solution, is like you, but she can keep herself in the form of a human. I'm not sure how I feel being an undead skeleton myself. On one side, I don't need to eat, sleep or feel tired ever again, but on the other, I can't even eat. I hope the doppelganger ring will at least give me back that. Does anyone else feel different? Momonga asked after explaining his feelings about his new form. I feel much lighter, and everyone seemingly moves in slow motion from my perspective, but otherwise I just feel hungry and want to get laid badly, Pero Roncino explained, but then his eyes went wide at the mention of getting laid and he stuttered with horror. Shaltir. Shaltir is real now. All the things I wrote in her backstory. If she gets close to any of us, sadomasochism, necrophilia, monster fetish, vor, fuck. He leaned forward in the chair resting his elbows and clutching his now bird-like face. There is a 50-50 chance she will find me and I'm going to get fucked to death and probably for a few hours after that. And not in a nice loving way. Seeing Perot's lamentations about his creations, Albert gulped and said with a barely audible whisper. Demiurge. Slumping down the chair. Killed by a rough fucking seems like a blessing comme pred to what Demiurge could do to us. We freaking made Nazarick full of psychotic monsters. Just how screwed are we? I didn't even bother to go see my creations before the server shut down. Even if they are not hostile, they sure as hell would hate me for abandoning them. Buku was calmer but the same as her brother and Albert lamented her decisions. Momonga watched the meltdown of his two friends with the same indifference that came every time he started to get too emotional about anything. Yet it was the same indifference that made him see things more clearly. Albedo seemed to be loyal, at least on the surface. At the mention of Albedo, Buku snapped out of her regrets. Oh yeah, she is clearly after your bony dick Momonga. What the hell were you both thinking, forcing her to love you? Tabula retorted instantly, I did not force her to love Momonga. She just feels love towards Momonga just like her sisters do. Momonga asked after some thought, Tabula, you wrote in Rubedo's backstory that she is loyal to me, right? Yes, she should be loyal to you above all else. The Brain Eater confirmed what they both already knew. So, if Nazarick turns on us we have a way out. She alone can stand against about half of Nazarick combined. We just need to activate her. That being said, we still need to find out what the rest of Nazarick thinks about us. We are not exactly humans anymore, so there should be no real reason for them to turn hostile towards us, at least for now. So, you say we just go chat with them? Even for the undead, you should at least give some shit about dying. Demiurge alone could think of 100 ways to torment us all to death, and Puro mentioned that Shaltir is a necrophile. Take a wild guess whose bones are getting humped to dust. Albert laughed without any humor in his voice. Believe me, I can imagine what they could do to us. I know what was written in their backstories, but if they think we are part of Nazareth, then I think our creations will not act with evil intentions toward us. I propose we gather all the floor guardians on the 6th floor arena and see how they react. Also, the arena is a good place to test our skills in case any of the guardians turn on us. I don't think I can face them, Pero Roncino spoke up and Buku just agreed with him. I need more time before I can face my twins. Momonga just sighed and after a moment of silence said, I will go. Either way, I need to find out for all of us. If something goes wrong, I will try to warn you all, but just in case, be prepared if they attempt to kill me. If that is the case, I will have no other option but to activate Rubedo. I'm coming with you. I can't let you do it alone, and they are our responsibility after all. Albert stated, standing up. I think we, at least for now, talk with them like we own this place and are their superiors. If Nazareth functions as usual, they should think of us as their leaders. I will contact Albedo and ask, no, tell her to gather the floor guardians in the arena. Momonga said. At least I don't have to face them alone. Albedo. Lord Momonga, how can I serve? Gather the floor guardians in the 6th floor arena in 1 hour. Except for the 4th floor guardian Gargantua and the 8th floor guardian Victim. I will contact Aura and Mare myself. It will be done, my lord. Let's head into the Maw of the Beast, Momonga said and teleported to the 6th floor. Momonga appeared on the steps of an immense arena, modeled after the Colosseum of Rome, with Albert appearing next to him moments later. The seats were filled with golems and continuous light was cast everywhere, giving the feeling of modern lighting. They both casually walked down the steps until they hit the sandy floor. Aura's blonde head poked out of the VIP lodge about 6 stories up from the ground level. The elven girl hopped over and jumped down, did a somersault mid-fall, and with a small shock wave hit the ground and started running towards them with great speed. Both Momonga and Albert managed to keep their composure, as Aura ran up to them. She stopped just moments before crashing into them and wiping her forehead. Aura bowed and greeted Momonga with a loud, clear voice, welcome to the floor my brother and I guard, Lord Momonga and Lord Albert Alan Odal. I almost shat my pants when she was charging at us. I'm assuming the role of Albert, for now. Poke me if I go overboard. Albert messaged. We will intrude a bit if you don't mind Aura, Momonga replied and intentionally called her by her name, in case Albert had forgotten it. What are you talking about? You are the ruler of the great tomb of Nazareth, Lord Momonga. No one would ever be bothered to receive a visit from you or other supreme ones. Momonga heard Albert's sigh of relief. So much for Albert's acting talent. Before awkward silence could settle in, Momonga looked around and said, by the way, I only see you here. As if taking a cue, Aura swung around and shouted in the direction of the VIP balcony, Mare. Don't be rude and come here. Lord Momonga and Lord Albert Alan Odal are visiting. Albert made a somewhat creepy smile, still not adjusted to his new form, and said, Lord Albert is just fine Aura. While Aura looked away, unnerved by Albert's expression, they could hear someone running down the stairs. Moments later, Mare ran out of the door at ground level and approached them while fixing his short skirt. Seeing the boy, Albert sent Momonga a message. I almost forgot that Buku is just as perverted as her brother. Who the hell makes children cross-dress like this? Just don't say that to her. We will never find your body if you do. Albert snorted out loudly, trying to hold back laughter, and clearly freaked out both Aura and Mare. Both elven children bowed, shaking like leaves in the wind. Aura was the one to ask with her head still lowered and hands shaking, her brother mimicking her stance. Lord Albert, did we do something wrong? Did I scare them with my reaction? It looks like they are even more scared of us than we are of them. Albert did his best to resume neutral expression. Even for someone who basically never had to deal with children, he knew he had to put them at ease. Albert walked up to them, patted their heads, and said, do not worry children, you have done nothing wrong. Momonga just messaged me a funny inside joke. Albert and I came here to do some tests on spells and summons. Could you help us with some stationary targets? Momonga asked, diverting the twins' attention from Albert. Aura eagerly nodded and summoned 2 dragonoids, controlled via her Beast Tamer job class. The creatures resembled massive muscular wingless dragons, each standing about 2 meters tall. At Aura's command, they dragged target dummies to the center of the arena and stepped back. With the UI gone, another method was needed to know how much mana or energy or whatever equivalent of it existed now he possessed. The moment he thought about mana, Momonga knew just how much of it he had, and combined with thinking about a particular spell, he knew the information just was in his mind. Better start small. He extended his skeletal arm and with a silent cast of Ice Lance hit one of the targets. The icy projectile tore one of the target dummies to shred, continuing its path towards the arena wall, which luckily didn't even budge when the ice shattered against it. Not bad. My aim seems to be spot on. Come to think of it, I knew where it would hit. Nice shot. Albert said, and raised his own arm. Let's see something with more firepower. A nuclear beam should be enough. The tier 8 spell was not that powerful compared to his more top-of-the-line spells, but was decent enough for the first tests of real magic. A ray of blinding light hit the target, disintegrating it instantly, and moved on to hit the inner wall of the arena. The potent blast sent a small shockwave, making the demon stagger a bit and move his palm upwards. The ray went into the spectator area, destroying everything in its path. Albert barely managed to cancel the spell before it went above the arena and hit the ceiling of the 6th floor. After a moment of silence, Momonga remarked, "We should be more careful with testing magic inside." Agreed. Albert nodded hastily. His spell had left a black charred line and piles of melted golems in its wake. If he had to guess, he had hit at least 20 of them by accident. The next step was to test how summons would work. Momonga resolved to go with the weakest creatures he could summon in case they would turn on him. As he cast the summoning spell, he noticed a strange discrepancy of the mana required for the spell. It was a lot higher. Other than that, the spell worked as it should, and 2 zombies rose up from the ground. The dull creatures resembling partly decomposed humans in dirty, torn clothing stood unmoving, awaiting orders. "Move there," Momonga said, and pointed to their right. Both zombies dutifully walked to the spot he pointed and awaited the next set of orders. Let's see just how loyal and eager to follow my orders they are. Kill each other. Instantly both zombies started to claw and bash each other without any hesitation. Although they were roughly on the same power level, one of them came out victorious within a minute. Momonga quickly finished the other one. The undead creature was barely held together, and there was not much use for it. Why was I not bothered by all this? Am I more undead than human at this point as well? I guess my new body is changing my personality somehow. Albert, following his friend's example, summoned a basic imp. About a half-meter tall flying demon appeared in a puff of flames and hovered in front of his new master. He had fiery red skin, leathery wings, and horns looking like a typical demon would. "I am ready to serve my lord," the imp said, bowing while hovering in the air. "Would you follow any order I give to you?" Albert asked. "Yes, my lord. Even if I ordered you to kill your kind or kill yourself?" "Yes, master, I would execute your orders without hesitation." Satisfied with the answers, he said, "Good. Go to the 7th floor and report to the nearest imp master." The small demon bowed again and flew towards the nearest teleportation point. "Looks like he knows the layout of the tomb," Albert remarked. "Seems so. Everything pretty much works as it should," Momonga said. Meanwhile, both twins were sitting on the arena's steps and looking in awe during the simple tests Momonga and Albert were doing. It was so fascinating to see both supreme beings in action, even if they performed very basic spells. A sudden message from the Guardian Overseer startled Aura. "Aura, please explain what caused damage in the arena on your watch." Aura gulped as she glanced at the charred line and messaged back. "Lord Albert tested a spell, and it hit part of the golems and..." "Understood. Keep watch and assist them if needed. When Lord Momonga and Lord Albert have finished, run the repair protocol." Albedo interrupted Aura's explanation and issued an order. "I know what I'm supposed to do." Aura messaged, annoyed. Superior or not, Albedo didn't need to speak to her like she was just a child. Meanwhile, done with testing the loyalty of the summons, Momonga went to the next thing he wanted to test. The inventory. Every starting player got 40 slots in Yggdrasil, and anyone of course could find storage items and buy additional storage space. As an almost obsessive collector, Momonga had bought far too many extra slots and filled them up over the years. He would not admit even to his closest friends that he had accumulated 16,480 inventory slots, with most of them filled up with various items, many of which he couldn't even use. Unbeknown to him, the second largest player inventory in Yggdrasil was only 3,240 slots. Let's see, everything else works on instinct, so inventory should be the same. His guess proved to be right. He possessed an instinctive knowledge of how to access every single item in the inventory. The first item he pulled out was a basic healing potion. Reaching into a small dark void that appeared in front of him, he pulled a palm-sized vial with a blood-red liquid inside. Momonga looked around for somewhere to put it down before reaching for anything else. "I could try to use the create item spell." "No, I have a better idea." I think Mare had a wide assortment of utility spells as well. He turned to face the elven twins that watched him and Albert from the seats. Mare, if I'm not mistaken, you know a create item spell? He asked the timid boy. Mare jumped to his feet, fixing his short dress, and ran up to Momonga. Why yes, Lord Momonga, I know both the create item and the create greater item spells. Excellent. Try making a simple table for me. Mare bowed and stretched out his hand clad in a white glove. An elegant oak table with a dark varnish appeared in front of Momonga. For the simple test he wanted to perform, it obviously was a gross overkill, and such a magnificent piece of furniture was better suited for the office of a player than a simple test, but he was not about to make any remarks to frighten the elven boy who was looking up at him expectantly. Good job, Mare. Momonga said to the boy. Thank you, Lord Momonga. He responded with a shy smile. Putting the potion on the table, Momonga reached into his inventory once again, pulling out a platter with a water pitcher and a few glasses. The next came an endless bread basket, a wand of resurrection, and a chocolate bar that boosted stamina. Unless someone is injured, we would not see if it works. We need to get someone injured to see if potions have their desired effect. Momonga turned to Albert. Oh hell no, I'm not getting damaged for a test. The goat demon took a step back. Lord Momonga, you can test it on us. Aura enthusiastically ran to him and stood beside her brother. Sis, I don't want to get hurt. Mare let out a whine. That won't be necessary. I will find another way to test the potion. Momonga raised his right hand. I would be honored to help you, Lord Momonga. Aura didn't back down. She turned toward her brother to stare him down. If you are such a wimp, then I'll gladly do it. Hit me in the face. I can't. Mare shook his head. Do it. Right here on the lip. Aura leaned forward. Buku will kill us if she finds out. Albert messaged, but before Momonga could interrupt the two children, Mare raised his arm, twisting his hand into a fist, and struck his sister in the corner of her mouth, causing a shockwave. Aura jerked sideways but managed to remain standing. She spat out a tooth with a smirk as her lower lip swelled. I am ready to test the potion, Lord Momonga. But I have to do it fast before my regeneration heals it naturally. Oh, of course. Here you go. Momong hastily gave her the potion, imagining all the ways Buku could and likely would murder him. Aura gulped down the potion. A moment later, the swelling on her lips disappeared and she flashed a toothy smile, showing the tooth that had regrown. Worked perfectly. Momonga let out a sigh of relief and then leaned forward. Let's keep this test between us. Of course, Lord Momonga. Aura flashed him another toothy smile and turned to her brother once again. See, it wasn't so bad. If you grew a spine, you could have helped to test it. Aua wasted no time scolding her brother. Just like their creator and her brother. Momonga mused. Buku Chigama designed them to represent the relationship that she thought she and her brother Peroroncino should have. Aura, the brash, brave sister, and Mare, the timid and quiet brother. Now for something less harmful. Please have a piece of bread, and a glass of water, and split the chocolate between yourselves. Momonga waved at the table. Aura grabbed water and immediately gulped it down, with droplets falling on her suit. She ate the bread with equal haste and then quickly tore into the chocolate, taking half of it. Mare took the glass and drank it with careful sips to not waste even the smallest bit. He did the same with the piece of bread, savoring every bite, and finally took the remaining chocolate. The final item remaining was the Wand of Resurrection, which Momonga obviously would not test on his friends or floor guardians. But before he could even think about how to test if resurrection worked, Sebas contacted him via message. Lord Momonga, we have a situation. Nazarick is surrounded by grasslands. Grasslands. That's unexpected. Any hostels or landmarks? No, just grasslands as far as the eyes can see and some non-hostile animals roaming around. There are no distinct landmarks whatsoever. Any danger from the grass? Any land effects? None, my lord. Just endless fields of green grass. I see. Return inside immediately and come to the 6th floor arena. I will listen to your full report in person there. As you wish, my lord. Sebas sent his last message. Momonga turned to Albert, saying, Sebas just reported that Nazarick is surrounded by grasslands. What? Does that mean we are not in Helheim anymore, but Are we even in any of Yggdrasil's worlds? I'm unsure, but it kinda makes sense that we are in some different world entirely. Maybe Tabula will have some ideas. He seemed to know something like this would happen. Yeah, come to think of it, he acted weirder than usual. When we return to the rest of our buddies, we are definitely squeezing some info out of him. Oh, that reminds me. The rest of the floor guardians should arrive soon, Momonga stated to Aura and Mare. Does that mean Shaltir is coming too? Aura whined, and on cue, a gate opened, and petite beauty with a Victorian-style dress stepped through. Oh, am I the first to arrive? She spoke in a voice younger than one would expect from her tone. The moment her gaze fell on Momonga, her face twisted in a radiant smile, her eyes glistening with joy. Lord Momonga, she exclaimed, and she finally noticed Ulbert beside him and quickly added, Lord Ulbert Alan Udal, as she curtsied to both. Shaltir then asked, have any other Supreme Ones returned as well? With a clear sign of who she hoped to see again. Momonga was the one to answer, besides us, Pero Roncino, Bukubuku Chigama, and Tabula Smaragdina also have returned. Hearing her creator had returned, Shaltir's face lit up in an even more joyous expression, and the elf twins perked up their ears hearing of their creator's return. But moments later, Shaltir's expression grew worried as she asked. Did Lord Pero Roncino not wish to see me? The elves also became visibly worried at the vampire's question. Seeing this, Momonga tried to calm them down, wishing to not escalate the situation. Do not worry, you will see them soon enough. Some unexpected events have happened, and we all are trying to figure out the details. If you wish, I will inform your creators that you seek an audience with them. Huh, that sounded more professional than I expected. I guess I can improvise from time to time. Hearing this, all three eagerly nodded with their expressions relaxing again, and Momonga made a mental note to tell both Puro and Buku how eager their creations were to see them. After a bit of thinking, Aura asked Shaltir in an accusative tone, by the way, Shaltir, why did you use a gate to come here? You know teleporting within Nazarick isn't allowed without a serious reason. I simply didn't want our lords to wait, Shaltir replied smugly. You should have entered the arena normally, if you wanted to be fast you could just run here. Oh wait, that would mess with your stuffed bra. Aura shot back. You are one to talk, you are flat as a board. Seriously Mare, dealing with that sister of yours must be a pain, Shaltir sneered. I'm only 76, so I still have plenty of time to grow and develop. You, however, are stuck with that undead body of yours, Aura retorted, and Momonga saw the hostility growing between them, but before he could split them apart a loud voice did the job for him. Is this how you behave in front of the Supreme Ones? The owner of the voice, the fifth-floor guardian Cocytus, came into view. The temperature dropped significantly as he got close to them. Some distance behind him, Demiurge approached. His spiked tail moved behind him as he walked, with Albedo beside him. They joined the other floor guardians, and Demiurge came closer to Momonga and Ulbert. He dropped on one knee and greeted them. Lord Momonga, Lord Ulbert Alan Odal, he then turned to Ulbert, saying as his voice broke, Lord Ulbert Alan Odal, you have returned to us. Thank you for giving us another chance to prove ourselves. Ulbert gulped as guilt suddenly hit him like a hammer. In front of him was his creation, who now looked up to him as a father who had returned to his child after many years of absence and blamed himself for said creator's absence. By sheer willpower, Ulbert somehow kept his composure and said to Demiurge, as he put a hand on his shoulder. Please rise, I left for my own reasons. You are not at fault. I'm proud that Nazarick still stands, and I can only thank Momonga and all the guardians for doing such an outstanding job protecting it. Demiurge stood up, wiped tears behind his glasses, saying, Thank you Lord Ulbert Alan Odal. And returned to the other floor guardians who were watching the unfolding scene and getting emotional from Ulbert's heartfelt words. Albedo interrupted the silence, now let us perform the ritual of allegiance. Wait, what is she planning? What ritual? Momonga looked at Albedo in confusion. The guardians all nodded, and before Momonga could get a word in, they had arranged themselves with Albedo in front, and the other guardians lined up behind her. Their expressions became stiffly ceremonious. Any hint of a relaxed atmosphere had vanished. Shaltir, at the end of the line, took a step forward. Guardian of the first, second, and third floors, Shaltir Bloodfallen. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. She dropped to one knee and put a hand over her chest, bowing her head low. After Shaltir, Cocytus stepped forward. Guardian of the fifth floor, Cocytus. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. He took the same humble posture as Shaltir and bowed to Momonga and Ulbert. Next, the two dark elves stepped forward. Guardian of the sixth floor, Ora Bella Fiora. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. G Guardian of the sixth floor also, Mare Bello Fiori. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. As expected, they also got down on one knee and bowed their heads low. Shaltir, Cocytus, Aura, and Mare. They all had quite different builds, so there should have been some discrepancy in the size of their steps, but their kneeling positions formed a straight line. Then Demiurge took a graceful step forward. Guardian of the 7th floor, Demiurge. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. Though his tone was cool, he made an extremely heartfelt bow without breaking his elegant demeanor. Finally, Albedo stepped forward. Overseer of the Floor Guardians, Albedo. I bow before you, O Supreme Ones. Smiling faintly at Momonga, she kneeled in the same manner of the other guardians. But for Albedo, that wasn't the end. With her head bowed, she made her voice carry and gave her last report. Except for the Guardian of the 4th floor, Gargantua, and the Guardian of the 8th floor, Victim, the Floor Guardians have gathered before you, your orders, O Supreme Ones. We offer our complete devotion to you. Seeing it all, Momonga panicked a bit and unleashed his aura of despair by accident without noticing it. The aura was devastating enough by itself, but it also was strengthened by the staff of Ain's Ulgaun, overwhelming the Guardians. Okay, didn't expect so much ass-kissing. Albert messaged his friend. Just play along. Who knows how they would react if we dismissed their profession of loyalty. Sure thing. Here it goes. Albert took his friend's aura as a cue to play up the "We Rule This Place" act, and activated his own aura to add extra effect with his hands spread out, holding his walking stick in one hand, and spoke with a wide smile that terrified even the Floor Guardians. Excellent. Momonga, the other Supreme Ones, and I are very pleased with your devotion. And let out a maniacal laugh. Momonga messaged him right away, Albert, you are overdoing it. Relax, it goes with my character. Albert replied. Please save your appreciation. We offer you not only our devotion but our very selves. It is most natural that we should heed your call. The Supreme Ones, our very creators, the perfect existences, none of us would think twice but to serve you with absolute devotion. Albedo responded on behalf of the Floor Guardians. As they rose in unison, Sebas arrived saying, I'm sorry for the delay but I have returned with my report. Momonga was first to react. Good job, Sebas. Please explain to everyone what you saw outside. Yes, of course, my lord. It seems that Nazarick was transported to an unknown location, with grasslands surrounding us with no intelligent life or artificial structures within a 5-kilometer radius. Since we have no clear information on the outside world, we must proceed with caution. As of now, no one is to leave Nazarick without our explicit permission, Momonga stated. We all must be on high alert. There is no telling what we can expect from the outside world, also we need to conceal Nazarick. I don't think illusion magic alone will cut it, so I would like to hear your input. After a moment of silence, it was Mare who spoke up. We could see cover walls with dirt and grow plants out of it. You want to soil the walls of Nazarick with dirt? Came a quiet and low growl from Albedo. Albedo, don't interrupt if you have nothing constructive to say. Albert scolded her right away to not let things go out of their control. The atmosphere shifted right away with Albedo quietly apologizing in a shaky tone looking like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, Supreme Ones. Please forgive this foolish servant for speaking out of turn. Although the rebuke was not addressed to them, the other guardians also tensed up. They became afraid the moment Albert spoke harshly. Our assessment of how they would react to us was way off. Momonga quickly caught up and tried to diffuse the heavy atmosphere. It's fine, just let others give ideas as well. Would it be possible to cover up walls in such a way? Yes, I believe so, if why you would forgive me for doing so. Then I'll leave it to you to start the work right away. Also, if possible, make other hills around the tomb area. A lone hill might stand out a bit too much. Why yes. It will be done, Lord Momonga. As for the rest of you, Nazarick will be on high alert until we know more. Momonga was ready to dismiss them when Albert asked a simple question. I would like to know how all of you view us, the Supreme Ones. And motioned for Shaltir to be first to speak. Beauty incarnate, nothing compares to the Supreme Ones with Lord Momonga above them, Shaltir replied promptly. It was obvious from the unhesitating speed at which she responded that what she said was what she really thought. Cocytus. Personification of power, no guardian can compare to the Supreme Ones. Aura. Merciful and exceedingly considerate, with Lord Momonga caring about us the most. Mare. I think the Supreme Ones are very nice to us, especially Lord Momonga. Demiurge. Wise beyond our meager understanding. Sebas. Our wise and merciful creators. Last but not least, Albedo. The ones who stand above all else, led by their exalted leader as well, the man I love, Lord Momonga. Why did you have to ask that? Momonga asked his friend as the emotion suppression worked like clockwork after each guardian praised him to no end. Relax. Your bony ass can take a compliment or two. Besides, it's not like you can blush or anything. I hate you. Doing my best, buddy. Any parting words for them before we go back? We are pleased with your vows. Take a brief rest and carry out your orders. Momonga finally said, and both he and Ulbert teleported away. Bonus story, ambition of a born ruler. Something had changed. What exactly the change was he could not tell, but one thing was clear: he had a goal given to him by his creator, and this goal was to rule over Nazareth. 20 manservants dressed in black and white servant suits with cloth masks resembling their master's appearance stood in a row. He walked in front of them, took out a comb, and gave his blonde locks a stroke. Men, we have a job to do and there cannot be any mistakes. Too much is at stake. He started to walk in front of the manservant line as he spoke with a passionate tone. My creator has given me a purpose and I will do anything in my power to reach the goals she had set for me. He stopped, pointing at one of the manservants. You. That second left button from the top has a smudge. Clean it now. The man started to shake in his boots but quickly obeyed the order and polished the button with a handkerchief. As I said, there cannot be any mistakes, there cannot be any slacking off. You will set out to do your jobs, and with my oversight, we will make preparations for me to become the one true ruler of the great tomb of Nazareth. To your posts and make me proud. The meter-tall penguin shouted the order as loud as he could. I will go deal with the toilets to make them so clean a supreme being could eat from them. He wobbled towards his objective with slow but determined steps. One day they will all see that my cleaning talent is so great that they have no other option but to make me the ruler of Nazareth. I will not let you down, Lady Ankuro Maki Mochi. If his beak could be twisted into a smile, he would be smiling right now. Proofreading by Vizir Nixon and Rodden Pizza, Tofrel, and Detract. Anne, thank you for reading the story, and if you have caught up to the latest chapter, you can check out my other work or join my Discord server, link is in my profile, where additional chapters are available, or if you are interested in becoming a beta reader. 5 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. DukeCheburek. Download app now. Chapter 4, Adjusting to the New Life. Right after Momonga and Ulbert teleported away, the oppressive pressure of their auras disappeared and the floor guardians sighed in relief. That was scary. Mare was the first to speak. Their auras were crushing, and when Lord Ulbert Alon Odal laughed, I almost soiled myself, added Aura. I never knew they were so powerful. Cocytus was the next one to share his experience. They didn't use auras when we were alone with them. Lord Momonga was very nice to us and let us help with his tests. Mare added, earning envious glares from her peers. With your permission, Lady Albedo, I will head back. I don't know where Lord Momonga went, but I should be at his side as the head butler. Sebas addressed Albedo. That snapped Albedo out of the euphoric trance she was in. Of course. Lord Momonga mentioned the conference room, so I think all the Supreme Ones will be gathered there. Understood. Then I shall await my orders outside of the conference room. Sebas bowed and then left the arena with a brisk pace as Demiurge noticed Shaltier's heavy breathing and asked. Is something wrong, Shaltier? I'm fine. Their presence was so magnificent that my underwear went through a crisis. Disgusting bitch. Albedo shouted at her. Oh, you are one to speak, you big-mouthed gorilla. I could smell the state of your underwear from the first fucking floor. Shaltier shouted back. They were both now glaring at each other, letting out low growls. Aura, I'll leave those two to you, said Demiurge, leaving, walking towards the portal area at a brisk pace. Hey. Wait. Aura shouted after him, but there was no use. A shouting match was going on and Aura just stared helplessly at them. Flat child. Fatty. As the two were close to exchanging blows, Aura looked around for any help, but even her brother had wisely managed to quietly slip away in the confusion. They will blame me if those two kill each other. Oi, don't you two have more important things to do? Aura shouted at them, shaking her head. Geez, you are like two children. Both turned to glare at her, making Aura gulp and take a step back. However, instead of attacking her, Albedo straightened out and said in a calm voice as her expression returned to a gentle smile. Of course. How unsightly of me to display such childish behavior. Shaltier, not wanting to lose face, also calmed down and curtsied. I apologize for my behavior. I'll be off to resume my duties. Of course, that would be for the best. Albedo said to her. We can discuss our differences in less stressful times with a more dignified demeanor. Indeed, Shaltier responded with fake politeness and walked off. Aura just let out a sigh and left the arena. I better stay away from them when they are together. She gave herself some wise advice. Ulbert and Momonga teleported back to the conference room where their friends awaited them. So, how did it go? Pero Roncino was first to ask and then quickly added. Hey Momo, turn that aura off, my feathers are starting to stand up. Momonga finally realized that his aura of despair was on, and turned it off. Just how long has it been turned on? He wondered. Albert turned off his own aura and started explaining how the meeting with the Guardians went. They all swore to serve us, and when I asked how they felt about us, it turns out they basically worship us. And their views on Momonga are on another level entirely. In their eyes, the rest of us can't hold a candle to him, right Momo? I just don't really understand why they hold us in such regards. Especially me. Really, Momo. You were the one who took care of them all this time while the rest of us quit the game. I do not know how this all works now that they are alive, but it's a fair guess that they remember at least some parts from before, right? Buku speculated. Then Tabula spoke up. I think they remember quite a lot. 2 days ago, when Momonga and I went and changed my daughters, I could sense their reactions towards Momonga, and I could even see some. Speaking of which, Tabula, it's time for you to tell us everything. I sure as hell know you have kept silent about things. You fucking knew this would happen and said nothing beforehand. By the way, outside of Nazarick is a grassland now, so we do not know where we even are. Albert addressed him in an accusatory tone. I said nothing because that would hinder your choice, just as the one who gave me hints didn't explain everything to me. If any of you want to return to Earth, to your old life, I will do anything to help it happen. As for what I know, there isn't much more. I knew something big would happen and Nazarick would change, but to what extent, I did not know. For now, I can try to find out what I can in the astral realm. I don't want to go back. Momonga said first. He already had made his decision beforehand and the others nodded one by one. Their old lives were shit. Even if they weren't human anymore, their lives would be infinitely better, even if they could never leave Nazarick. Speaking of the outside world, we ordered Mare to conceal Nazarick as a simple mound and, until further notice, forbid anyone from leaving Nazarick until we know more, Momonga added. You think something might attack us? Then shouldn't we activate Rubedo right away just in case? You said she would be loyal to you. Pero Roncino asked. We might as well. If she is alive as the rest of the NPCs, it would be cruel to leave her inactive. Oh, that reminds me. Shaltir, Aura, and Mare wished to meet you. Buku asked with uncertainty, aren't they angry at us for leaving? It was Albert that responded to their worries. When we were in the arena with Momonga, Demiurge came to me and looked at me like a child seeing his father after years of absence. He fucking cried when I told him it was not his fault I left. Demiurge, what I thought would be an evil monster, cried like a child seeing me. I felt like some deadbeat father who had left his child and fucked off for years. Pero Roncino was deep in thought and when Momonga asked if he was alright, replied, I don't know how to approach Shaltir with the way I made her. It was with that cute lewd lily waifu in mind but being here it feels, god damn it, why did I make her like that? Seeing her brother's distress, Buku asked in an uncharacteristically gentle voice, like what? That she will want to sleep with me. Shit. Why did I make her in such a way? Why does that idea feel so fucked up? I made her as, god damn it, if I would have known she will become real and I would think of her as my daughter I would never have made her in such a way. Puro continued lamenting his decisions. He let go of his head and let his forehead hit the table with a quiet thud. Not to add salt to the wound but you wanted your NPC to be a nymphomaniac, so that's kinda on you, Buku said patting her brother on the shoulder with an arm-like extension she made out of her gelatinous form. But I get you. Some heads up from whoever did this to us would have been nice. She is my daughter. I don't want to think about her in that way. Puro groaned. Fuck, what should I do if she starts to act up on all the things I wrote into her backstory? You know, if you feel like she is your daughter, she probably will think of you as her father. And even though you are a fucked up pervert, I don't think you wrote incest fetish in her backstory. No, I didn't. Thanks, sis. Pero Roncino to his sister perking up, and with newfound resolve added, I will go talk to her later, but now I'm starving, there must be some food somewhere in Nazarick. I will contact Sebas. He was supposed to be head butler of Nazarick. Momonga said. Do it. I need food. Puro said as his stomach growled loudly to emphasize his statement. Sebas, could you please arrange some meals for me and my friends? Momonga messaged him and sent a second message right away, so as to not seem too arrogant and lazy. We are busy with the current situation and need a quick meal to continue working. Of course, Lord Momonga. Sebas will bring us something. Hey Momo, how are we going to eat? I want to taste stuff, not just dissolve it. Buku asked. Momonga slid a ring over the table to her and put one on his free finger, saying, "These are doppelganger rings, just pick a form." He didn't manage to finish the sentence, as DukeCheburek eagerly grabbed the ring and absorbed it into her red gelatinous mass, activating it, thinking of the form she wanted to take the most. She rapidly transformed into a humanoid shape as skin and hair grew on her now human-shaped form. She had chosen to look like the two children with the same heterochromia eyes and long golden hair as Aura and Mare. What she didn't account for was that changing into a humanoid would leave her without a single piece of clothing and armor. As a slime had nothing resembling clothing, she was now standing nude in front of them. Buku was never particularly shy, but now with her curvy and toned body, not to mention the pair of large, shapely breasts, she had no problem standing nude. Momonga stared at her for about half a second with his mouth open, her gorgeous form now burning in his mind. Then he rapidly snapped out of it, reached into his storage, took out a simple robe, and tossed it at her, turning his head away, being embarrassed simply because he stared at her nude form. Buku quickly dressed, saying, "Thanks, big brother Momonga, I didn't expect to give you all such a show," as she gave a wink to Momonga. She was always flirty with him so she could easily play off her mishap. "Did you have to ruin elves for me or something? Cover your ass." Puro shouted at her. "Don't be a dramatic bitch. I was a slime just a moment ago and you sure as hell had a lot of research material regarding slimes." "Arg." Puro grumbled in response. Momonga activated his ring as well. He had saved a few forms in it, which he used in raids on enemy guild bases. Since he was left alone, he needed various builds to clear them. The first idea was to switch into a human, but Nazarick mostly hated them and he didn't feel like one anymore anyway, so a demon sounded like a better option. The moment he activated it, flesh rapidly grew on his face and to his surprise, for a very brief moment, he felt pain. It replaced his skeletal face with a demonic one. Grayish skin with a bit of blue tint, dark eyes, sharp teeth, and two horns sprouting upward from his head. Two large wings grew out of his upper back, seemingly ignoring his robe, which retracted, giving them space to grow out of. The wings felt like a part of him right away. Flying was one of the things he wanted to test, but that could wait. To his surprise, Momonga noticed that the ring only gave an appearance and not the full demonic build he had stored in the ring. He made a mental note to look into it later. Now feeling hungry for the first time since midnight, his attention settled on having a meal as well. Only about 2 minutes had passed before a knock on the door was heard. "Come in." Momonga invited whoever was knocking. Pastonia the head maid was first to walk in. She had a sewn-up dog's head instead of a human one, but otherwise, she was dressed in a regular maid's outfit with a seemingly fully human body. After her followed 10 homunculus maids, each carrying a platter with appetizers. The maids looked a bit out of breath, as if they had run as fast as they could with platters in their hands. Pastonia bowed as 2 plates were put in front of each of them and they were presented with menus by the maids, and spoke, "Apologies for the delay. I shall take your orders for the main course if you please, woof." Momonga and the others were stunned, looking at the number of appetizers presented to them. Pero Roncino snapped out of it first, ordered a steak, and started eating. The rest of them quickly ordered as well. The food smelled and looked divine. Such luxuries were reserved only for the elite back in the old world. I better not mess up. How do you even eat most of these things? Where are instructional videos when you need them the most? Momonga mused. The only solace was that the others were in the same situation. Puro and Albert seemingly cared less as they started munching on the appetizers. Following their example, Momonga started to eat as well. His first pick was a small bowl of some sort of soup. While he savored the taste of the soup, the maids arrived with the main course. Luckily his current demonic form could hold a lot of food as he was determined to not waste a single thing even if it caused pain. Then came the dessert fit for kings. This single 3-course meal alone was worth all the stress the current situation had caused. As the maids were taking away empty plates, they were sitting with satisfied faces and Pero Roncino, as usual, was the first to speak. "That was heavenly. I didn't know food could taste so good." The others nodded in agreement. After the meeting, Momonga teleported to his quarters on the 9th floor. Each of them decided to do or try things on their own now that they knew Nazarick was safe for them. He only had an hour since they all agreed to meet for a walk outside. He was against the idea at first, but trying to breathe fresh air was something even he couldn't pass up. Besides, a combination of all 5 of them could take down some of the weaker world bosses and there was no reason to believe that some world-ending threat just waited for them outside. In his usual determined, pragmatic manner, Momonga decided to use the time to test various equipment. With his hoarder tendencies, he didn't even need to leave his quarters to get all the test equipment he needed. The massive bases littering every free space of his private domain were filled to the brim with various weapons. The tables were filled with books, jewelry, and various one-use items. And every single dresser or cupboard was packed to the brim with sets of armor. Curious if he could wield a sword as a caster, which he couldn't in-game, Momonga picked up the sword by the hilt, feeling how light it was. Being a level 100, even as a caster, gave him immensely high stats, and even though his strength was lacking compared to the other stats, he felt abnormally strong compared to his former feeble human self. I wonder how Buku and Puro are handling their new power. Must be hard to even pick up things without breaking them. Momonga thought of his friends while swinging a greatsword around. The massive blade felt completely weightless as if made out of cardboard. For the siblings who both had more physical builds, the new strength must be overwhelming. Of course, strength alone didn't make one a melee fighter. In the untrained hands of Momonga, the sword was nothing more than a sharp club. A maid was standing nearby and watching him intently. When he and his friends split up, Sebas had insisted on providing each with a maid in case the Supreme Ones needed anything. Momonga tried to turn him down at first, but the stoic butler didn't budge and broke his master's resolve to go without servants. In his case, it was Narberl Gamma, one of Pleiades' battle maids, a dark-haired beauty with Asian features. The group of 6 maids led by either Sebas or their youngest sister Oriole Omega, were the last defenders of Nazarick. Although much weaker than a floor guardian, their purpose was not to kill invading players but to serve as distracting eye candy that could dish out enough damage to surprise a distracted opponent. Momonga quickly noticed how unhappy she looked to not be of any use to him. He internally sighed as he continued to swing the sword and then dropped it, by accident. Narberl, could you please pick up the sword and put it back in that vase? Yes, my lord. The maid enthusiastically responded and hurried over to do as ordered. It was an insignificant gesture for him, but she now looked much happier, although, as before, tried to not show it. I will have to remember to give servants small tasks so they feel useful. She looks much cuter with that subtle smile. Momonga glanced at the maid. I better not use the demonic form too often. It's so distracting. He quickly caught himself thinking unsavory thoughts that almost instantly switched from the attractive maid to Albedo, whose lovely presence never left the corners of his mind ever since he activated the doppelganger ring. Returning to the task at hand, Momonga also did some tests with other weapon and armor types, getting the same results. He could technically use everything, but he simply didn't have the skills to use them properly. Could I learn to use melee weapons and abilities of different classes? I will have to set aside time and properly test these things out. Even if the concept of a level was a lot looser than before, it still was the best method to know one's strength, so there was no need to discard it. As people say, there is no point in inventing the wheel twice. Albert, meanwhile, was inspecting his living area with Yuri Alpha, oldest of the Pleiades battle maids, following him around. She was a beautiful woman with an intelligent look, dressed in a maid's outfit. The thing that stood out was her blue collar. Same as her sisters, she got the chance to serve one of the supreme beings. Interesting collar. Why did they give her such an accessory? Oh right, she is a Dullahan. I guess it makes sense that she would hold her head in place that way. Albert inspected the beautiful maid in a rather unashamed manner. Can I be of service, Lord Albert Alon Odal? She asked, reacting to his stare. Not at a moment. I was just wondering about your collar, but I already remembered why you were wearing it. Albert flashed her a smile. The new life was the polar opposite of his previous one. All the pain was gone. In fact, he didn't even feel tired and his new demonic body felt weightless and responsive. Without a hurry, he walked around his quarters inspecting what luxuries were now available to him. A massive bed with silk sheets called to him to take a comfortable nap. A bar filled to the brim with rare spirits just begged for him to test it out. And then there was the bathroom. It was bigger than his old apartment with a massive bath in the middle. I should take a bath. All this stress has made me sweaty and I likely stink like a dead goat. He decided. Yuri, can you please fill the bath? Albert asked the maid. Of course, Lord Albert Alon Odal. The maid responded with her usual calm demeanor suiting her undead nature. Man, this is the life. He watched as the maid opened the faucets, prepared the towels, and a bathrobe, not to mention put a set of soaps and bath salts next to the bath for him. If Momonga had not sent the invite, shit, I might have been dead at this point. Maybe I did die and this is a paradise. Now I would know that I died and someone like me would not be in paradise. Albert started to take off his accessories, but Yuri almost instantly interrupted him and started to do it in his place. Her gentle, lightly cold touch was exciting. Calm thoughts man, she surely is skilled. I really need to thank Momo for the invite. Mental note to self, thank glorious guild master for the invite. He set a reminder in his head. This was the life he always dreamed of. No pain, no harsh survival. Surrounded by friends and loyal servants. Yet the darker memories surfaced for a moment. Albert on Earth was an orphan with no education. As a bright kid, he had learned to read and write on his own, but no one gave a shit. He was tossed into a low-end job at 12. At 30, his health had all but gone. Just one of many discarded tools for the elite. Fuck all that. I want to enjoy this, not think about all the gloomy shit that was before. He hastily pushed the dark thoughts away as Yuri took off his shirt and reached for the pants. This is getting into Puro territory real fast. I better be on the safe side for now. Yuri, this is enough. You can leave while I take a bath. As a maid, it is my utmost duty to cater to all your needs, my lord. She continued to unbutton his pants. Damn, that sounded suggestive as hell. I know, but you do know how people take baths, right? I can arrange another maid for you, my lord, if my presence is bothersome. That's not the, whatever. He wasn't particularly shy after all, and if the undead maid wanted to watch, so be it. Despite being a caster who had rather limited physical capabilities compared to someone like Puro or Buku, he was ripped with his slim form showing clear muscle even with all the fur covering them. Lastly, she took off his underwear and glanced at his tool, getting a slight tint on her pale cheeks for just a moment, and she absent-mindedly bit her lower lip before snapping out of it and resuming a neutral expression. Oh, she likes it. I wonder if it would be too forward to offer her to join me. She clearly is hiding an impressive body under that outfit. The temptation surely was there. With his cancer progressing, it has been over a year since he had last enjoyed a woman's company. His careful, calculating side still won in the end. Better not risk it for now. Momonga might not be happy about me abusing my position on the first day. He quickly walked past the maid and sat down in the large bath. The water was at the perfect temperature, lulling him into a relaxed state. Something he hadn't experienced for a while. Yuri, could you get me a glass of something to drink and a cigar from the bar? Albert asked to enhance the experience even more. A moment later he soaked in the bath with a cigar in one hand and glass of bourbon in the other with a wide grin plastered on his face. This is the life. After cleaning Lord Albert's main outfit and preparing a new set of underwear, Yuri stood beside the bath, awaiting orders as a proper maid should. As an undead, her overall feelings were dampened, the same as Momonga's. Otherwise, she would not be able to recover from the red face when she saw a supreme being undressed and taking a bath in front of her. Finally, Albert was getting out, and she as a dutiful maid was ready to dry him off with a towel, but he, to her disappointment, wrestled the towel away from her and dried himself off. But as consolation, she helped to put on the bathrobe, and once he was in the dressing room she of course was helping Albert to put his main outfit back on. Tabula had decided to use his time to discover as much as he could about the new circumstances. It took mere moments to get into a deep trance and go to the astral realm for answers. First, he tried to contact the same being that gave him hints about Nazarick becoming real, but no answer came. There were other ways to find information, so he investigated the basic rules of the world. It was quite clear that most game restrictions didn't exist anymore, like the number of spells one could learn, and their types also didn't matter anymore, just the person's capacity to learn. The weapons one could learn and class restrictions didn't matter anymore as well. In place of a level cap, there now was a person's maximum potential. After some wandering around, a book appeared in front of him out of nowhere. I guess that entity did respond. Let's see what sort of information he granted me. Tabula eagerly grabbed the book and started to flip through the pages while sitting down cross-legged on an endless field of green grass with a blue sky above. One of the first things the tome revealed was that an item called Endless Strive could increase the potential of a being and that Momonga possessed it. What was even greater, the so-called one of 20 world items would not disappear in the world if bound to the owner's soul. There was such functionality in-game for up to legacy items, but now it could be applied to even the greatest of world items if the proper rituals were used. The same page contained a detailed description of how to perform such a ritual. Since time functioned differently in the astral realm, Tabula didn't need to worry about being late for their walk, as even days spent here would only be minutes in the physical realm. He continued reading the book, absorbing the extremely valuable information like a sponge. The next revelation came soon after as he read on. Because of his and his friends' almost godlike power and nature, they could call themselves gods and speed up the learning of what they were gods of. Of course, proper instructions were there as well. Such knowledge. Why is this entity giving me so much knowledge? What is he gaining for it? What price will he ask in return? Tabula mused, flipping a page, and there came the answer. Events set in motion need a balance. Ask and you shall receive. Worry not, his book is a gift. Nothing more, nothing less. Shazu Delta, the Pleiades mate assigned to Tabula, was standing near him while he sat in a deep trance traversing the astral world. As an automaton, CZ2128 Delta, or just Shazu Delta, didn't particularly mind just standing there. Supreme One is busy with deeper matters. My duty is just to wait for him to have need of me. She remained unmoving. Even if Lord Tabula didn't ask a single thing of her, it was paramount that she was there ready to serve. X. Pero Roncino was in the 9th floor dojo testing out how weapons worked since he wasn't fully ready to face Shaltir just yet and he had nothing better to do. Lupus Regina Beta, the Pleiades maid that managed to be assigned to him for a day, was happily sparring with Puro even though she could match neither his strength nor speed. Although she was on the curvier side, the sheer beauty of the tanned redhead made the avian's heart beat faster. You better be careful, I might grab you if you are too daring, Puro said to her with Lupus narrowly avoiding his attack by jumping aside. Oh, the Lord wants to grab his poor maid and do lewd things to her. How scandalous. She said while faking a shocked expression. You are not that good of an actress. I see how excited you are at that prospect, you naughty girl. Puro taunted her with a laugh. Me, a pure, innocent maiden. My lord, surely you jest. She said as she jumped around and swung her butt seductively. You tease. He shouted and closed the distance faster than she could react, lightly digging his talons into her taunting backside. Lupus yelped and jumped forward. Lord Pero Roncino is such a brute. She let out a whine and glanced at him with puppy eyes. Unfortunately, in the excitement, she couldn't hide her smirk. And you like it? He laughed. My, Lord Pero Roncino is preying upon a poor maid. She smirked back, showing her prolonged canines. Now come at me, you tease. We are far from over. Puro said. The subsequent attacks went no better and Puro managed to grope her tone but a few more times. Despite her earnest efforts to look angry, all Lupus managed to do was let out happy giggles at all the attention she was receiving. After a 30-minute match, Pero Roncino had barely warmed up, but Lupus was panting heavily, covered in sweat. She wore a wide smile and her wolf's ears twitched happily under her hat. She is a solid 9 for me. I wonder if I could invite her. His friend's judgmental burning gaze appeared in his mind's eye. I'll better wait a day or two before starting my collection. There are other hotties around, after all. Momo might not be happy if I took one of the battle maids for myself on the first day. Our time is almost up. How about one more strike and then I'm off to hang out with friends? Puro asked. Lord Pero Roncino is leaving me behind. Her smile faded. Sorry, but we are going outside to check the situation. I can't risk taking you with me. As you command, Lord Pero Roncino, Lupus said with a bow, trying to keep her composure. Oh, don't stress it. I will be around and we can spar some other day as well if you don't have other stuff to do. I would be honored, Lord Pero Roncino. Lupus smiled again and using Puro being distracted, lunged for a strike that predictably ended with her poor butt suffering another strike. X. Buku was picking out armor she could wear as an elf in the armory, with Solution Epsilon as her assigned maid. At first, she just wanted to visit Aura and Mare, but going out in just the robe Momonga gave her didn't sit right with her. She was a tank, after all. Nothing less than heavy plate armor on her new form would suffice. Seeing Momonga's creation for the second time, Pandora's actor, was as amusing as it was the first time. When he exaggeratedly greeted her in Solution and called them both Fräulein, she couldn't help but giggle. Solution seemingly wasn't too thrilled about it and just glared at the eccentric Momonga's creation in silence. She doesn't look angry. Wait a minute, is she envious of Pandora's actor? But why? Oh, could it be because Momonga created him? Buku noticed Solution's glare wasn't one of annoyance. To distract her, Buku asked about Solution's abilities. I wanted to ask how you keep your human form. My creator Lord Hiro has given me the ability to keep in the back of my mind how I want to look, Lady Buku Chigama. That's simple. Yes, Lord Hiro gave me all the skills I needed. Solution said with clear reverence towards her creator. I'm sorry that he couldn't make it. I know he would be happy to see you. Buku apologized to the maid on the player's behalf. If only he had stayed a bit longer. The poor guy would not have to work himself to death in that shithole. Thank you, Lady Buku. The maid bowed, but even she could not hide the sadness in her eyes. They are all like lost children who wish to see their parents. I definitely will go visit Aura and Mare tomorrow. To not get overly stressed about meeting her two creations, Buku quickly turned her attention to the various plate armor sets that were laying around in the treasury, not wanting to upset the maid whose creator didn't make it. She picked a few spare legendary tier sets and put them all in her inventory, which was empty at the moment. Additionally, she grabbed dresses and other casual outfits that caught her attention. Most were either purely cosmetic or had caster stats, so it would not serve as any sort of serious gear but just fancy clothing. After returning to her quarters with Solution in tow, Buku gave the maid all the casual clothing to be sorted in her dressing room and meanwhile took out the plate sets one by one, examining which one had the best stats for her. Of course, a divine tier set would have been the best option, but there weren't any spares in the treasury, and taking another player's gear even if they weren't around would likely cause at least Momonga's ire. Especially knowing how finicky he was about the treasury and guild rules in general. In the end, all that mattered was that she would be able to take a lot of hits while her friends dealt with the attacker if one even showed up while they were outside. If it came to the worst, she could revert back to her slime form and fight using her natural form, which did have divine tier items. An hour later, they all gathered at Nazarek's entrance for a walk outside. Somehow, both Demiurge and Albedo caught wind of them going out and waited for them at the entrance like parents catching their children sneaking out. Supreme Ones, we can't let you go out without an armed escort. They both said in unison. Demiurge, Albedo. Do not worry. The five of us can kill a world boss, we will be fine, Momonga said to them, but to no one's surprise, it had no effect. With their continued insistence on not letting the supreme beings go out without an armed escort, Buku was first to break and just said. Let's just bring them with us. No harm in it, right? I guess not. You both can accompany us if you like, but that's about it. We do not need a massive army guarding us. Momonga said. If the two guardians wanted to go with them, so be it, but to fully give in to their demands was also a slippery slope that could lead to them being more insistent in the future. Now, with Albedo and Demiurge tailing them, they went outside and took their first breath of fresh air. Momonga used his doppelganger ring, once again activating a demon form to have the ability to breathe normally, and took deep breaths, staring at the sky. He could hear his friends doing the same. There was no need to talk. They all felt the same. Fresh air, clear sky. This was their chance to create the paradise they wished for. Deciding to test his wings, Momonga cast Fly on Tabula, Ulbert, and Buku, as Puro and the rest could fly by themselves, and took to the sky. They were floating high in the sky, high above Nazarek. No light in view besides the clear starlit sky. Albedo flew close to him and locked her hand with his, carefully positioning herself so their wings didn't hit each other. Her hand was warm and there was an alluring radiance coming out of her. He hadn't noticed it as an undead, but now in his demon form, he had nothing to dampen his emotions. She was not saying anything, just holding his hand and looking into the distance with a warm smile on her face. Momonga hadn't felt a woman's touch for years, and such an intimate one was a new experience. Her arm is so warm. She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Maybe these thoughts came because of what he wrote in the backstory of his character, yet it felt so right. Tabula wished for me to take care of her. Even if his current feelings were just a result of the lines he added to his avatar's backstory, it would not change a thing. He would do his best to make her and her sisters happy. In a sense, all of them were brought together by Tabula's last-minute insistence. After staring at the sky for a while, Buku said somberly, Blue Planet would have loved this. Yeah, it sucks that the others didn't come. Most would enjoy this new life. Ulbert added. No pollution, clear sky. Maybe this is our chance to make a better world, Momonga remarked absent-mindedly, just enjoying the moment. Suddenly, Ulbert broke out into a burst of mad laughter. You know what, you were right. We need to make a better world, so we need to take over this one. We can't let some shitheads mess this one up, like Earth was. We don't even know what's out there. For all we know, we may be weaklings here. Momonga in his usual manner was the voice of caution. Endless strive can be reused again and again, there is no limit to our growth anymore. Tabula casually informed everyone. What? Wait, how did you even know I had it? I never mentioned I had found it, and wouldn't it just disappear to who knows where after use like all 20 do? The astral realm can give all the answers if you know where to look. Tabula casually replied, then continued, all you have to do is to bind the endless strive to your soul and the item will never leave you. I even found out how to perform the ritual. So, all that crazy occult shit you were always talking about, was it all true? Pero Roncino asked in disbelief. Most things were, Tabula responded with slight annoyance. He knew very well that people rarely paid attention to his lengthy explanations. I am not just insane, you know. Sorry man, I didn't mean to imply that you were insane, just, damn, you were living knowing this kind of shit could happen and no one was listening. I would be salty as hell if it was me. Kuro added. Don't worry about it. I did my best to inform people of what is out there. Tabula dismissed his concerns. I think we will benefit from your knowledge more than ever. Momonga said to the Brain Eater and then addressed all his friends. So, we agree we are taking over this world, or if we can't right now, we level till we are on top, counting that none of us have a natural lifespan anymore. Momonga half asked, half proposed. The proposal was unanimously agreed upon. Today we can rest and tomorrow morning we could decide on what roles we should take and what our next steps are. Albert added a proposal of his own. Right, we can't sit on our asses for too long. I agree we should decide on our responsibilities. Buku nodded at the demon. Both Albedo and Demiurge were listening to the conversation intently. Finding out that the original world of the Supreme Ones was corrupted and that they didn't want the same thing to happen to this new one was shocking. Also, they now knew what the goal of the Supreme Ones was: world domination. Momonga returned to his quarters, still in demon form. He could have dropped it, but feeling tired was nice and he wanted to stay how he was so he could sleep for at least a few hours. There was no shitty job to wake up to, and he thought to himself that he can have one night's rest before starting his new life. With all the Supreme Ones safely back in their quarters, Albedo called most of the floor guardians for a meeting. She purposely called Demiurge a bit earlier. Demiurge, just the face I wanted to see. She greeted him with a warm smile. Something you wish to discuss? The Archdemon asked as both sat down in a smaller conference room in the servant area of the 9th floor. The room was a far cry from the absolute marvel that was the one reserved for use of supreme beings, but served its purpose nonetheless. Out of Nazarik's servants, you are no doubt one of the most intelligent ones, so I wanted to discuss our findings with you first. You mean the fact that the world, Supreme Ones hail from, is ruined and they wish to conquer this one to not let it suffer the same fate? Among other things. There is an additional piece of information only I had the privilege to witness the moment the changes happened at midnight. Oh. Supreme Ones spoke of change that affected not only them but all of us as well. I know it's hard to accept, but we have never seen their true forms. What we have always known as our creators are just avatars. They used to live in Yggdrasil, and I suspect their true unlimited forms are beyond our comprehension. Albedo said with reverence in her voice. That is not surprising, to be honest. Of course, our meager minds could not comprehend the true magnificence that is our creators. That would also explain how they could just return at a moment's notice and go in and out of the former reality we know as Yggdrasil. Demiurge agreed. From what I gathered, things have changed. I think Supreme Ones cannot return to their full selves or to that ruined world they hail from, for some unknown reason, and will be staying with us. By observing them speak of such things, I'm fairly sure they are happy about this change. It may be a far-fetched theory, but could it be that they sacrifice parts of themselves to save Nazarik from the Ragnarok they awaited? Of course, they would feign ignorance to save us from the harsh truth. Demiurge took off his glasses and polished them with a silk napkin as he presented his theory. My creator, Albedo suddenly stopped. Demiurge won't understand that I hated my creator. He was preparing for the change. When he came back, he changed me and asked Lord Momonga to imprint changes in his core being as well. She locked her hands with a wide smile. Intriguing. I assume your borderline inappropriate actions after Supreme Ones left the arena were the result of said changes. Yes. Albedo looked away. I must admit I have difficulties controlling myself regarding Lord Momonga. I see. But if said changes were intentionally made not only by your creator Lord Tabula Smaragdina but also were accepted by Lord Momonga as well, I would assume they are well aware of your behavioral changes and have accounted for them. I would think that is the case as well, but I should learn to be more composed nonetheless. In either case, we should concentrate on carrying out the will of supreme beings and prepare to assist them in conquering this world. Unless your role is meant to be different. Demiurge said. By how her eyes dilate and breathing patterns change when talking about Lord Momonga, it is rather obvious Lord Tabula has made her feel a deeply romantic and sexual attachment towards Lord Momonga, and obviously she would show possessiveness if any other female showed similar interest. The most logical assumption, in this case, would be that Albedo is intended as a wife to Lord Momonga and she was changed to erase any superior loyalty towards her own creator. The demon quickly came to a conclusion about what was done to the Guardian Overseer. With her being the most important NPC of the Great Tomb save for other supreme beings, she would be the most suited candidate to fill the role she was guided towards. Just as their conversation ended, all the floor guardians walked into the room one by one. They too would be informed about the plan to conquer this unknown world, but neither Demiurge nor Albedo mentioned the changes that were made in Albedo. Bonus Story 1 Drawing Names and Telling Stories. Yuri Alpha had gathered her sisters and informed them that each Supreme One was taking an hour's rest and they were to be assigned to serve them. There are 5 Supreme Ones and 6 of us, so one will have to stay behind, Yuri added. Lupus raised her hand and shouted, I want to serve Lord Momonga. I want to serve Lord Momonga too. Maybe he will need cleaning. Solution interjected, licking her lips. Yuri clapped her hands to get their attention. I know all of us want to serve Lord Momonga, but only one of us will get that honor today. We will draw for the names of the lords with one of us staying behind. After getting nods of agreement, she prepared 6 identical pieces of paper and filled 5 of them with the names of the Supreme Ones, and mixed them together. Lupus Regina, as the most impatient one, grabbed one piece right away and read. Lord Peroroncino. Not what I hoped for, but serving him will probably be fun. Yuri planned to take the last piece, so she motioned Narbril to take the next piece, which she did. With a triumphant smile, she announced her piece which said, Lord Momonga, dampening the mood of the remaining Pleiades. Shizu took the next piece and just said in a neutral voice, Lord Tabulus Maragdina. Solution grabbed a piece and then said, Oh, I got Lady Bukubukuchigama. What a coincidence, she mentioned something about wanting to talk to me. As only one of the 2 remaining pieces contained the name of a Supreme One, Intoma took one with a shaky hand and let out a whine when she opened it up. I got the blank one. Yuri then announced, that settles it. I'm serving Lord Ulbert Alan Odal, and the rest of you go take your positions as well. I'm sorry Intoma, your chance will come next time. Intoma returned from snacking on bugs on the 3rd floor of Nazarick and waited for her sisters to return and tell the stories of how it went. They all returned at the same time as the Supreme Ones had gone outside the Great Tomb together and dismissed them. Lupus was overly excited as she was jumping around, her ears twitching under her hat. She was also the first one to share. I got to train with Lord Peroroncino. He likes my butt, see? As she lifted her skirt and showed the talon marks on her butt left by the mischievous avian. After that, all eyes were on Narbril as her story was one the rest of them wanted to hear. Lord Momonga tested weapons and armor. He even dropped one on purpose so I had something to do. She told them, beaming. The rest quickly agreed that Lord Momonga was always so nice and considerate even towards mere servants like them. I visited the treasury with Lady Bukubukuchigama. She picked armor for herself in her new elven form. She now truly looks like Aura's and Mare's mother. Said Solution, not wanting to even mention anything about meeting Pandora's actor. Lord Tabula just sat unmovingly. Shizu added. Then Yuri, as the last one, dropped the bomb and reported with cheeks reddening. Lord Ulbert Alan Odal took a bath, and I can assure you he truly has the physique of a supreme being. She had clearly won this small competition as her sisters just stared at her in sheer disbelief at her luck. Proofreading by Visor Nixon, Detract, Toffrel, Atero, Sad_Smiles, and Rotten Pizza. Anne, thank you for reading the story, and if you have caught up to the latest chapter, you can check out my other work or join my Discord server, link is in my profile where additional chapters are available or if you are interested in becoming a beta reader. 7 comments 0 vote. Chapter 5 Roles and Duties. Momonga opened his eyes and for a moment tried to remember why he didn't hear the alarm clock. Right, I'm still in Nazarick. The memories came back. He sat up with a yawn and stretched. When did I last sleep for so long? It must be years. Maybe 10 more minutes. No, I have to start the day. Still in his demon form, Momonga lazily got out of bed, approached the dresser, and picked one of the neatly folded casual pants. Glancing at his demonic form in the mirror, he put on the pants. I guess I'll keep my form like this unless, I doubt she is waiting for me in the next room. Assuring himself that Albedo was not in the next room waiting to jump him, Momonga walked out of the bedroom. The maid standing by the entrance to his quarters stiffened up and bowed. Good morning, Lord Momonga. Good morning, Solution. He responded casually. I should have put a shirt on. Why do they have to be here all the time? Why is she looking like she wants to eat me? That can't be good. She is a slime that can dissolve pretty much anything. He swiftly turned around and went back to the bedroom to put on a robe. Knowing Solution, she might as well just be hungry, and ending up on her plate wasn't on the Overlord to-do list even if she should be absolutely loyal. I should get something to eat as well. Thinking about eating made his stomach growl loudly right in front of the maid. Should I get you breakfast, my lord? Solution asked, reacting to her master's apparent hunger. There is no need. I will go to the restaurant. Momonga said, walking out of his quarters with Solution and the 8 edge assassins following him. The invisible spider-like creatures were appointed by Albedo to guard the supreme beings against all threats within the tomb. The ninth floor looked a lot busier compared to the previous day. Maids were cleaning the wide halls, and a lot more guards were posted everywhere. Looks like Albedo is hard at work. The first thing greeting him when he entered the restaurant was Perot's loud voice. You are eating like a starving pig. Oh fuck off, like your table manners aren't that of a drunken orangutan. Buku spat back while stuffing her face with a delicious-looking dessert with a small patch of whipped cream on the tip of her nose. They are at it again. How I missed it. Momonga mused as he approached their table. I hope they wouldn't mind me joining them. Good morning, mind if I join you? Momonga asked. Hey Momo, not at all. I could use some pleasant company for once. Buku said with a cheerful giggle. Just get an umbrella if you don't want to get hit with drool and food by our resident piggy over there. Puro joined in. Buku just snarled at him and returned to gorging on her dessert. Momonga ordered a random dish not particularly knowing what it was. So what are your plans after the meeting? He asked the siblings. The main plan of the day was to have an official meeting and decide on some sort of general plan on how to proceed. Of course, no one wanted to just wake up at 5 in the morning and start working, so it was agreed to meet at 11. I'm going to visit Aura and Mare. I hope they are not too mad at me. Buku replied with a hint of worry in her voice. Same, I need to go see Shaltier before she finds me first. If I don't come back, look for a corpse stashed somewhere on the first floor. Puro added with a nervous laugh. It won't be that bad. They seemed very eager to meet you both again. Momonga reassured them. I hope so. What are you planning to do, oh glorious leader? Buku teased. I've not fully decided yet. There are a lot of things I need to investigate. I will probably decide after the meeting. Same old, huh? You know you should really kick back for a while. Maybe have some fun with your assigned wife. Buku said. Yeah, you can't keep a succubus on a dry spell. That would be such a dick move. Puro chipped in. Momonga stammered. God damn it, emotional suppression does not work in demon form. He came to a realization, as his cheeks changed color and both of his friends laughed at his expense. With not that much time left after breakfast, they went to the conference room, and soon after, Albert and Tabula also arrived. Once everyone had sat down, Momonga reverted to his undead overlord form. The calm mental state of an undead mind was more convenient for thinking and planning, without the distraction of potent emotions. Since he still was the guild leader, he needed to open the meeting. Let's start. The first thing we need to discuss is our roles and duties within Nazarick. Albert spoke up. I think I speak for everybody that we keep Momonga as our leader and extend it to the level that we obey his direct orders. We need a clearly established hierarchy since the stakes are much higher now and there is no one better to lead us. Wait, we can keep the old system with voting. Momonga protested. Okay. Let's vote, then. Albert smirked, who is for Momonga being the leader with clear authority over others. Instantly 4 hands shoot up. Wait. I am no leader. Momonga tried to protest again, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. None of us were some big shot before. Buku interrupted him. Who kept the guild together and could manage us all even during the biggest disputes? Who took care of this place when no one else was around? Admit it, Momo, you are the most level-headed out of us. Seeing that he had outplayed once again, he just asked with a heavy sigh. I have no choice, do I? Nope. You'll have to lead us. Albert said. And let's be honest for a moment, you are the best candidate to keep us in check. That's for sure. Puro joined in with a laugh. If no one is looking over my shoulder, I will have a few hundred girls in my harem in no time. I still think the old system was better, but I see that I'm outvoted on the matter. Momonga grumbled. Momonga, my friend, when we first arrived in this new world, all of us froze in confusion, but you took charge almost effortlessly. Even if you don't see it yourself, you already were a great leader before, but now, as an overlord, your ability to lead will be even greater. Besides, we all left. You have heard it yourself in what regard Nazarick's denizens hold you. They remember how we left, and you stayed. They remember you alone taking care of them. In its truest sense, Nazarick is yours. You are Ains Ul Gaun, the one true ruler of Nazarick. Tabula stated with rising passion, which was rather uncharacteristic of him. Damn, the man sure knows how to make speeches. But I agree. If NPCs do remember what has happened in the game, they would not accept anyone besides Momo as a leader. Puro agreed with Tabula. So Momo will have the title of the Supreme Overlord of Nazarick. Who is for? Albert raised his hand with a smirk. You chuny bastard, why? Momonga watched his friends one by one raise their hands. Fine, I see there is no winning with you all. I will accept this duty. But Supreme Overlord? Really? Momonga groaned. Come on, you are a freaking overlord, it's your race description. Embrace it. Albert cackled like a maniac. Momonga rubbed the insides of his empty eye sockets with a sigh. Let's get to the next topic. There was no helping it. He just had to give up and accept the fate that he would have to be a leader in the truest sense of the word and not just an administrator. It was almost the same in the past. Momonga didn't want to be a leader, but when Nine's own goal, their original group, led by Touch Me, was remade in full as the guild, far too many people simply refused to join if Momonga wasn't the guild master and, just like now, he buckled that time too. Buku then added, actually, it's a great idea, right? How about we call Momonga Ains Ulgaon from now on? Then even his name sounds impressive. If we are ruling the world, the leader's name should inspire awe. On the off chance someone knows Japanese, we can't have our leader named after a flying squirrel. If I'm about to change my name to Ains Ulgaon, then you four should take part in it too. How about we all share the last name of Ooal Gaon? Momonga made a counteroffer in a small hope that idea would be dropped. As if being called the Supreme Overlord wasn't enough, now they wanted to name him after the guild as well. Of course, he had no such luck. The moment Buku heard the offer, her face lit up and she said with a beaming smile. I'm for. From now on I'll call myself Buku Ooal Gaon. Then I'm going with, Puro Ooal Gaon. Her brother joined in, equally enthusiastic. Albert Ooal Gaon. He announced, beaming with pride at his friend's suggestion. Tabula Ooal Gaon. Announced Tabula at last, adding. We have declared ourselves a family. The enthusiasm of his friend was infectious. Ains broke into happy laughter, but it was suppressed right away, so he made a tactical cough with his non-existent throat and started. Seeing no option but to embrace the role pushed upon him, Ains decided to push his friends the same way. Now we should decide what roles you all take and declare a clear hierarchy so there is no infighting over petty things in my absence. I think I would like to oversee Nazarik's intelligence operations with Demiurge as my assistant. Somehow it feels like an occupation I would want to take. I would be the Grand Inquisitor of Nazarik. Albert declared with his trademark mad cackling. With no one opposing, it was settled. Tabula was next, professing his desire to seek knowledge and aid everyone in getting new skills and abilities, taking the title of Grand Scholar of Nazarik. What should I do? Those two instantly knew what to do. I was always the main tank of the guild, so maybe I could take charge of the tomb's defense. Seeing the eyes on her, Buku said with a rather unsure tone, I could be in charge of Nazarik's defense, I'm used to that role. How about you take charge of all military operations then? Be Nazarik's military leader, so to speak. Ains suggested to her. I guess I could, but I have no knowledge of tactics, I didn't even play strategy games that much, Buku replied. There should be many books in the library about this topic. I remember placing Sun Tzu's Art of War in the guild's library myself, and I think there were many other books on the topic as well, so learning a bit and taking the role of Grand Marshal shouldn't be impossible for you. There are a few of Nazarik's denizens excelling in military operations that you could take as your assistants. Tabula suggested. I guess their suggestion makes sense. I might as well be in charge of military forces. I hope someone can guide me through the first steps. Losing an army or two in swamps somewhere because I forgot basics would not look good on my resume. Okay, then I will take on the role of Grand Marshal of Nazarik. She said with determination. The last one without a role was Puro. Without any idea what he could do, he started with a joke. Then I'll take charge of the R&R department. Be serious for once, Birdbrain. You really plan to slack around when the rest of us take on serious duties? Then what should I do? I'm an archer by trade now, though maybe I'll branch into close combat to compensate for my general weaknesses indoors. Puro asked, ignoring his sister's insult. Then train stealth as well and go full on special ops and assassination. You could make strike teams for Nazarik. Albert suggested to Puro, adding, we will surely need it if we are to rule over this world. Oh, that actually sounds awesome. I will be the Grand Master of Assassins. I'm not sure how I still feel about killing, but somehow it clicked right away and feels right. Puro nodded. With each role decided, they then determined a hierarchy among themselves. Not that anyone besides Ains could give orders to others whenever they felt like it, but more about who would give them in his absence. Ains, of course, was on top, and then with some discussion, they assigned Albert to be second in command with Buku as third. Both Puro and Tabula didn't really care about their positions, but they finally decided that Puro would be fourth as he was less opposed than Tabula to take charge. With the first topic out of the way, Tabula used the opportunity and stood up, giving Ains a scroll, saying, "This is the ritual required to make Endless Strive bound to you. You can do it right away and then give us all a boost of potential so we can start working on acquiring new skills." The ritual itself didn't seem too hard. It took some mana, but it was negligible compared to Ains's immense mana pool. Seeing no reason not to use it, he opened the scroll and bound Endless Strive to his soul. With no noticeable changes or sensations, he took the next step and used it to increase his own level cap. Besides feeling that it worked, Ains couldn't exactly tell what had changed and resolved to do some tests later. For now, it was his friend's turn to get higher limits as well. After doing so, Endless Strive was left with a few more charges, with one charge being generated every 3 days. Looks like I will have to make a priority list on who gets the next charges. It will take a while to give everyone their boost. Tabula, is there anything else I should know? He asked before moving on to other topics. Since we have settled on names and roles, I have another thing to suggest. I would like to inform you that many of the old game mechanics don't exist anymore, such as limitations of any weapon used, and the number of spells one can use. With that, I would like to suggest we each take an additional title, so to speak. As we are leaders of Nazarick and in the occult, which you know I study, there is a deep connection between titles and beliefs to actual power. So, with that, we each should take the title of a god for a specific thing and study it till we reach godhood in it. Call ourselves gods. Don't you think that's a bit arrogant and pretentious? Buku interjected. Not at all. All of us already feel much smarter, stronger, and more powerful than our former human selves. I doubt we will be low on the power pool in this world. So, let's embrace it. I can even go into a trance and get direct suggestions on what each of us should be the god of. If it gets us more power and a bigger chance of setting things how we see fit, we can use it, but I'm not too sure about calling myself a god either. Ains replied. The idea still seemed logical to him. He was apprehensive to call himself a god, but they were already hailed as the supreme beings by Nazarick's denizens. They might as well just own up to it and declare themselves gods. So just by calling myself a god of something specific, I get more powerful in that field? Albert asked. It sounded a bit too much, even for him. Not by itself, you still will have to work on honing your abilities, but if I perform a ritual and ask directly to grant us titles, we will surely know what to concentrate on. Sure, why not? What is the point in stopping halfway there? Let's get through it. Tabula, do your thing then. Albert said. Tabula took it as a cue to proceed and simply stated. I will start, give me a moment to get into a proper state. And slumped back in his chair. His breathing grew slow and deep and soon he spoke, show me what I ask. Oh, primordial void from which all has come, respond to my call and grant us our divine titles. His guttural voice was replaced with a clearer one as someone else spoke through him. Albert, the demon goat, the walking catastrophe, the evil one with countless schemes, be the demon god of trickery. The voice spoke through Tabula as he raised his finger towards Albert, awaiting his acceptance. Demon god of trickery. Sounds just like me, bet. A pang of fear arose in him. What if I lose the last remnants of humanity? I know this path is for me, but is the price worth it? I can only hope no, Ains can keep me in check. I agree. Albert declared with a confident smirk. Make me the god of trickery. Tabula's finger then pointed at Buku, the protector, the one who will stop at nothing to keep those in her care safe. The one to unleash bloodshed upon her enemies, be the goddess of war. How, is my fate written or something? That voice is right, I would stop at nothing to protect my friends and family, this is my path. I accept. She responded with her lips twisting in a faint smile. Puro, the one who seeks power to kill, the one who wants to be a weapon put in capable hands, be the god of murder. The voice declared as Tabula pointed at the avian. I hope Tabula knows what he is doing. Puro looked down at his hand, now having sharp talons that would turn a weaker opponent into a mincemeat. Should I embrace the idea of being a killer? If Momo would be the ruler, he surely would need someone who does the dirty work. Even while playing Yggdrasil, he concentrated on burst damage and high DPS. Also, he never wanted to lead as his best friend Ains had accepted the role. I would be the weapon for my friend to unleash. Sure, I agree. Make me the god of murder. Finally, Tabula pointed at Ains as the voice continued. The one who rules over them, the one who will rule over all of them, be the god of life and death. God of life is an undead. I understand the death part, but life as well. This is strange. But I can't be the only one backing out. Tabula likely knows what he is doing. The idea of being the god of both life and death itself was interesting for sure. After all, life and death were the two sides of the same coin. If he would agree, then he would be the one in charge of the coin, holding the fates of others between his skeletal fingers. If I am to accept, I will have to learn to heal, use holy magic, and who knows, maybe even summon angels. Hey, me as an undead, commanding angels. That sure will be a sight. I accept this role, he declared with his dark flames burning brighter in the empty eye sockets. Lastly, Tabula's hand touched his own chest and his voice nominated him as the god of knowledge. Moments later, Tabula awoke with a jerk. It is done. Now we will have to embrace our choice, he said in a ceremonial tone. The spiritual mood was instantly interrupted by Puro starting with a laugh. We are fully fledged Chunabu now. Albert chuckled as well. Puro's statement was on point. Most of them now had titles of some evil gods, but unlike old times when he was the one coming up with evil ideas, it was Tabula, or whoever spoke through him, who gave them overly edgy titles. We will have to inform the NPCs about our new titles. I will ask Albedo to gather everyone in the throne room, Ains said. We probably should prepare some sort of speech. Leave it to me. I have just the idea for how to go about it, Albert said, adding before Ains could put a word in. Don't stress it, I won't overdo it much. Fine. You can be the one announcing our decisions. Ains gave in. It was better to leave the speaking to a natural showman like Albert than try to awkwardly do it himself. With the meeting over, Ains teleported to the throne room to talk with Albedo. The succubus was in her usual position by the throne, working through UI panels with lightning speed. Lord Momonga. She bowed and then smiled. How can I serve you? She bit her lower lip with her cat-like pupils growing larger. We have some major announcements. Can you gather every named NPC in the throne room at 4 in the afternoon? Momonga asked as he sat down on his throne. As you command, my lord. Albedo switched back to a professional demeanor. I have an additional plan. With my friends returning, I think we should add 4 more thrones beside mine. Ains presented his idea and waited for Albedo's reaction. But Lord Momonga, you are the ruler of the great tomb of Nazareth. You should be the only one sitting on a throne, Albedo said with her smile fading. I am not above my friends. As you know, each guild member had a say. I know, Lord Momonga, your generosity towards other supreme beings knows no bounds, but, she stopped mid-sentence. You should be above them all, my beloved. But what? Ains asked. She thinks it is a bad idea. But why? But, nothing. I should not argue with you on how supreme beings should be treated, my lord. I will carry out your will, Albedo said, putting on a professional smile. What specifications should I follow when requesting the construction of additional thrones? I will leave that to you. Just don't go overboard. Can yours still be the most magnificent? Yes. My position within the guild has not changed. Good. At least they know their place. Albedo quickly sent an order to the crafting department with specifications to make 4 identical thrones that would be fit for supreme beings but subpar compared to the throne of kings. Anything else I can do for you, Lord Momonga? She leaned closer to Momonga. When your daily duties are done, we could discuss how to proceed with Nazareth's administration, Momonga said. She is leaning forward. Her figure, the emotional suppression calmed him down the moment he got too excited about her presence. I will be in my office. I won't make you wait for long, my lord. Albedo leaned forward even more. My beloved Lord Momonga is inviting me to join him. I must freshen up in case he has other plans besides work for me. Just as another emotional suppression went off, Momonga used the opportunity to teleport away. Buku slowly walked towards a large tree on Nazareth's 6th floor. The home of her 2 creations. What am I going to tell them when they ask why I was away for so long? Momo said they were eager to meet me. He wouldn't lie to me, right? This isn't some sort of setup. Her stride became slower and slower with each step. Since she used the ring to teleport, the elven twins should not be aware of her presence just yet. The large tree came into view, making her stop. How many hours she had spent there in the past. Decorating the home, dressing both of her children in cute clothes. Then one day real life took precedence and she couldn't spare time to play silly games when she needed to save up as much money as she could while she still could work. They would not understand. They are just kids. What am I going to tell them? The last steps felt particularly heavy as she finally reached the entrance to Aura's and Mare's home. After a moment of hesitation, she knocked. One of them was loudly running down the stairs. Buku gulped and took a deep breath. The door flung open, Aura looked up at her in silence. She remained unmoving, staring at her creator with big eyes as her low lip started quivering. Seeing that Aura was overwhelmed with emotions and needed to be consoled, Buku kneeled and embraced her creation. Aura hugged her back and started sobbing. Like that, all the fear melted away. She missed me. It's all right. I'm back for good. She whispered in the girl's ear. With all commotion, Mare had walked down the stairs and froze midway, seeing his creator hugging his sister. Uncertain of what to do, he just stood there, waiting for some sort of command or order. Buku held Aura with one hand and stretched out the other, inviting Mare to join them. The boy approached them with small, careful steps, clutching his skirt. Once he was close enough, Buku grabbed him and pulled him into her embrace as well. Same as his sister, he broke down sobbing and clutched his creator as hard as he could. My children. I'm so happy to see you both. Buku said through her own tears. Yes, you are my children, my wonderful children. She confirmed to herself that it wasn't just a slip-up. The feeling was undeniable, she couldn't see them any other way than her children. Then Aura asked a question that Bukuma was not fully prepared for. Lady Bukubukuchigama, can we call you mother? It stunned her for a bit. They want to call me their mother, they want to call me their mother. I mean, I am their creator, their mother, that sounds so wonderful. No, actually I want to be called mom, mother sounds too formal. She looked at the four big eyes looking at her with awe, awaiting an answer, and she could only say one thing. Sure, you both can call me mom. The twins, after all, were the children she always wanted and now truly had. She took both by their hands as they happily showed their home to her, chatting about their duties and activities. Even if she last visited the place years ago, they didn't say anything she didn't already know. Aura, as a younger copy of herself, was loud, energetic, and full of bravado. Her brother, Mare, on the other hand, was meek and submissive to his sister. Aura is just like me. The tomboyish, assertive girl was the one dominating the scene, dragging her mother around the treehouse by her hand while Mare timidly followed both. The timid boy, on the other hand, was made in a way Buku wanted her own brother Puro to behave towards her. Now seeing Mare as a living, breathing person, her child, regret welled up in her. I made him like this. I made him like this for my own childish desires. How could I have ever known he would become alive? I will have to work on his confidence. Although the house looked pretty much the same, there were some things that reflected their personalities. Aura's side was turned into a mess within a day, with her toys and clothing laying all over the place, while Mare's side was neat and orderly, the same way Puro kept his surroundings. Once both were fully calmed down and every nook and cranny of the treehouse was shown to her, Buku sat down in the massive chair that was put down precisely in the middle of the main playroom and patted her lap. Aura sat down on her right leg while Mare took the left. Remember this? Buku asked, taking out a simple comb from her inventory. Me first, me first. Aura responded excitedly. Aura, don't hog all my attention, your brother deserves some too. Buku scolded her daughter. But mom, he combed his hair like 4 times today. Aura protested. Be nice. I don't want you to be mean to your brother. Buku dropped her tone a bit. Why yes, mom. Aura nervously gulped. I will be nicer to Mare from now on. That's better. Buku responded with her usual high-pitched, childish-sounding voice. She turned attention to Mare, who nervously shifted in anticipation. Buku ran the comb through the boy's hair, remarking. So smooth, you really are taking good care of your hair. I'm trying my best, mom. Mare's ears perked up. After a few more strokes with the comb, Buku turned her attention to Aura. Even at first glance, it was clear that the girl's hair was a mess. Buku ran the comb through her golden locks, but they just didn't give in and the comb got stuck. When did you last comb your hair? Aura. I don't remember. Sheesh, did I forget to give her the routine? This can't be from me, no, definitely it's not from me. Come to think, she has been alive for only a day, god damn it, I did make her this way. Buku sighed and continued fighting with the girl's hair that didn't want to relinquish its messy state. In the end, the comb lost the fight and broke. Shish, Buku managed to stop herself from swearing. That was a close one. Looks like I will have to get a new one. Maybe one made of caloric stone will be strong enough. Mom, my hair isn't that bad. Aura protested. Tell that to the poor comb. Buku ruffled her hair. We will continue this some other day. Buku gently took her children out of her lap one by one. You are leaving. Aura quivered her lip. I am not going anywhere. I told you I'm back for good. When you don't have any duties, you can come visit me on the 9th floor and I will come to visit you almost every day, okay? Sure, Aura replied. Don't worry, I am not disappearing on you both again. Buku kneeled and hugged both one more time before leaving their home. Perot's hands were shaking as he approached the doors of Shaltyr's sanctuary. Shaltyr Bloodfallen, his creation, lived there. It would be easier to take a bullet in the gut than knock on the door and speak with her. Damn it, man, stop being a coward and go meet her. He told himself, took a deep breath, knocked, and waited. Moments later, the door was opened by a vampire bride. Her eyes widened, and she kneeled right away, even stuttering a bit. Lord Peroroncino, it's an honor. Is Shaltyr in? He asked, trying to sound calm even though his shaking hands betrayed him. The vampire bride either didn't notice or at least pretended not to. Shaltyr heard someone entering and came out of her private area with a shout, "Who is interrupting my priva?" And then stopped in her tracks, stunned. She stared at Perot for a good 3 seconds and then kneeled as well, "Lord Peroroncino." Shaltyr started at the floor with her head hanging low, waiting to be yelled at or reprimanded. Lord Perot wasn't with Lord Momonga and Lord Albert yesterday at the arena. Her creator must have been so disappointed in her that he didn't even want to meet her. There was no other explanation for his absence. She had failed to protect Nazarick more than once, being killed by invading players. Please rise. You don't have to do that formal bullshit with me, Perot said with his voice cracking. Shaltyr slowly rose, but her head was hanging low, unable to look into the eyes of her creator. He must be disappointed in my failures. I didn't live up to my creator's expectations. The same thoughts whirled in her mind. Is something wrong? He asked and glanced back to see if he could make it out of the room before she jumps him. She must be beyond pissed. I left for so long. Shaltyr whimpered a quiet reply. Lord Peroroncino, I know I don't deserve it, but please forgive me for being a failure. I failed my sacred duty to protect Nazarick so many times. I will try to be better. I won't fail you again, my lord. Please give me another chance. Wait a minute, she thinks it's her fault I left. Shit, she thinks I abandoned her because she was not good enough. Perot gulped and approached her. You have done nothing wrong. I'm sorry I left. I hope you can forgive me for my long absence. Perot looked at his creation who was hanging her head low in shame. Not only was she not mad at him for leaving, but his creation, his daughter, was ashamed that she was killed as a floor guardian. Shaltyr looked up at him with tears in her eyes. Lord Peroroncino, you are not disappointed in me. Why would I? I failed, I was too weak to protect Nazarick many times, and despite that Lord Momonga always resurrected me. Shaltyr, you are Nazarick's first line of defense. I'm so proud of how many times you defended our home, and I'm sorry you had to die. It was not your fault. You alone can't kill all the invaders. Sometimes there are too many of them, Perot spoke, as he gently wiped her tears away. She remembers it all. Fuck, that must have messed her up. Being killed again and again. If I knew, I would never have let her be the guardian of the first 3 floors. Lord Peroroncino, you are proud of me. Shaltyr looked up with a tear-stained face, smiling at her creator. Of course I am. He pulled the vampire into a hug. Once the initial surprise passed, she hugged him back tightly, pushing her face in his feather-covered chest. After Perot finally let her go, they both sat for tea as one of the vampire brides brought it over and served them, looking nervous. That girl looks on the verge of pissing herself. None of Shaltyr's subordinates are thrilled about her short temper and sadism kink, that's for sure. Perot mused. He had ridden Shaltyr as a bit of a brat that wanted to be in control most of the time and would explode over small things. I wonder what she thinks of me. Better ask now than one day wake up chained up in some sex dungeon. After moments of silence, Perot finally asked, Shaltyr, how do you view me? Lord Peroroncino, you are my creator and I understand for what purpose you made me, and of course, I will fulfill all your wishes, but, she hesitated to continue. You see me as your father and do not want that sort of relationship with me. Perot hoped. Yes, I am sorry, I will play any role you want and. Don't. You are my daughter and that is all I want from you. Be my wonderful little girl. Perot reassured her. I'm not that little. I'm sorry, Lord Perot, I didn't mean, she instantly switched to a fearful expression. Hey, it's alright, a bit of sass makes it more fun. Perot chuckled. You don't have to filter what you say that much around me. And for a father, no matter the age, his daughter is always his little girl. Oh, her face lit in surprise, you meant it like that, Lord Peroroncino. I just assumed you thought of me as a little child. I am more than old enough to be married to my beloved. Who would that be? Perot asked, already suspecting who Shaltyr was talking about. Oh, and just call me Perot or father or dad. Father, I shall call you, father. Shaltir smiled warmly at him and he smiled back although his bird-like face with a beak didn't show it. My heart belongs to Lord Momonga. Puro reached his hand over the table and gently patted her on the head, saying, Oh Shaltir, my little daughter. If Momonga ever decides to marry you, I will give my full blessing. I can't imagine a better man to give you to than my best friend. But don't get your hopes up that easily, Momonga is not the type to pick up girls left and right. It soon became a casual chat and Puro found out he had no problem talking casually with Shaltir. She was now proudly talking about her duties and reminiscing how often Momonga had patted her head and commended her on her good work. As she spoke, Puro was eyeing the vampire brides from time to time. They all looked very nervous but were stunningly beautiful. Shaltir noticed her father looking at them and asked. Lo. I mean, father, do you desire to take some of my vampire brides for yourself? Shaltir noticed her father looking at them. Yeah kinda, I mean if any of them are interested. Puro replied. She talks of them like they are some sort of toys or property. Of course they are. To those sluts, even a passive glance from you is the best thing that has ever happened to them. Shaltir said casually. Do any of the present ones catch fancy or should I call all of them all for you to pick some, father? They all are very nice. Maybe we can let them decide. You are too kind to them, father. Shaltir giggled and then addressed the vampire brides. You heard Lord Peroroncino. Decide among yourselves who will have the privilege to be my father's toy. As you wish, mistress. One of them replied and motioned for the rest to follow as they started to look at each other with murderous glares. Once they decide I'll send the one over to you, Shaltir said with glee. You don't have to be gentle with them. I can spawn more of them with ease. That sounds a bit fucked up. Oh well, I made her that way so I will have to deal with my little girl's eccentricities. Puro just gave up on correcting her. Puro left Shaltir's sanctuary soon after, and he was casually striding back to his quarters. Knowing how eager they are to take care of Shaltir, I think I have a fun night ahead of me. He couldn't hide his excitement. Ains sat in his office with Albedo sitting on a smaller chair beside him, half listening to her explaining all the administrative processes of Nazarick. How did I let them push me into this? Momonga was cursing his friends a bit for pushing him into the leader's position. As Satoru, he was just a salaryman, someone who took orders and followed them, not commanding others. His now overlord nature gave some vague sense of assurance that he is up to the task, but one cannot become a leader on a hunch alone. Albedo was trying to lean against him as she was explaining the expenditures and making suggestions on how to avoid unnecessary ones. Ains felt the succubus pressing against his side and asked. Albedo, do you need to take a rest? You seem tired. No, Lord Momonga, I'm fine, as Ains felt her wing brushing against his back. He wasn't sure if it was intentional or not. She was a succubus, after all, and maybe did that on instinct. Would you like to rest, Lord Momonga? Maybe a relaxing bath together would interest you. Bathe with her. I mean, the emotional suppression calmed him down. Tabula did right. Wait, was she forced? Another wave of calmness engulfed him. That won't be necessary, Albedo, Momonga said, and while he was still calm enough, decided to just address it. I was present when Tabula changed your settings. I wanted to ask how you feel about that change. My creator gave the blessing to love the most wonderful man any woman would want. I feel grateful towards Lord Tabula Smaragdina. Albedo pressed closer against him. You don't think he took away your choice, to choose for yourself? Lord Momonga, I would make the same choice anyway, Albedo replied but got worried and asked, does my love bother you, my lord? No, of course not, but you must know that Tabula did the same changes to your sisters. My sisters. I understand Negretto. But Rubedo, she is a golem, it doesn't matter. I guess if Lord Tabula Smaragdina gave us all to you, Lord Momonga, I would accept his decision. Albedo said as her tone grew darker, then she perked up again facing the Overlord. Will you accept my love, Lord Momonga? She asked with a hopeful stare. He was at a loss about how to respond. Women didn't pay him much attention while he was still on Earth and now one was professing her love. He gazed back at her and knew he let Tabula make her love him. I let him make that change. She is my responsibility. I must make her happy. Not only her but Rubedo and Negretto as well. Tabula entrusted them to me, I can't let him down. It may have been the decision to write in his character's backstory that he would hold all three sisters in a special place in his heart at play, but it ultimately didn't matter. Being undead allowed him to think clearly, and seeing her hopeful gaze, he already knew how to answer. We still need to talk to your sisters, but yes, Albedo, I will accept your love. Wonderful. Then will you take me right here on the table, or in the bedroom? Or will you take up my bath offer? I'm ready to serve you, Lord Momonga. Once again the emotional suppression came to his rescue before he went into a full-blown panic attack. You don't have to think only about me. A relationship doesn't work that way. But I want to make you happy, my lord. I want it so much. She purred. Let's take it slow. Momonga leaned away from the overly eager succubus. Of course, Lord Momonga, Albedo said in a calm voice, but her disappointment was noticeable. Then she perked up and asked hopefully. Maybe a kiss. Kiss. A kiss should be a nice start. He decided to accept her suggestion and activated the doppelganger ring, turning into a demon once again. Not protected by the dampened emotions of an undead, he instantly got overwhelmed by her presence. We can start with a simple kiss. He managed to get out and turned his head to give her a peck on her perfect lips. Albedo eagerly leaned in, meeting him halfway. Before he knew it, Albedo was in his lap aggressively grinding against him as her tongue invaded his mouth and her hands wandered through his hair. The desire to have her right here and now grew stronger by the moment. He tried to have a coherent thought and failed miserably. Only when the maid at the door clamped her legs together and slid down with a half moan and half groan did Momonga manage to pull away from the demoness who was exploring every part of his mouth with her tongue. Albedo. Lord Momonga. She moaned in response, going for another assault to his mouth. Wait. Momonga deactivated the demon from getting hit with an emotional suppression like a sledgehammer. She kissed his bare teeth and licked them a few times. Albedo. Momon raised his voice as it broke in something resembling a squawk. She finally snapped back to the present moment and slowly stood up from his lap. I'm sorry, I got carried away, Lord Momonga. It is fine. But let's take it slow. Of course. She bit her lip. This was wonderful. I hope we can kiss again soon. It was. Momonga agreed. But let's carry on with work for now. He knew he couldn't avoid her for long, not that he wanted to. Then again, he was not about to lose his virginity in front of an audience either. After finishing with daily administration duties, both Ains and Albedo arrived on the 5th floor. Their destination was Negretto's room. Recalling Albedo's aggressive advances, Momonga prepared for the worst, to be overwhelmed by the sisters the moment they got a chance to jump him. Maybe Negretto is more restrained. He gave himself a vague hope. They reached Negretto's room after a few minutes. The room was still as decrepit as before. Negretto, seeing who had visited her, immediately knelt. Lord Momonga, dear sister, welcome to my dwelling. Tabula forgot about her room. That goddamn forgetful moron. Good thing I decided to visit her today. Momonga cursed his forgetful friend for leaving his eldest daughter in such an environment. Seeing the dramatic change in her sister, Albedo could not help but ask, Negretto, what happened to you? Lord Tabula, our father, changed me a day ago, giving me skin on my face and instilling a love for Lord Momonga. So, sister, will you be my rival for Lord Momonga's love? Albedo asked, her tone sounding dangerous. Do not worry, my dear sister. I care deeply for you and Lord Momonga, but it wasn't a romantic love that Lord Tabula instilled in me toward Lord Momonga. You should be the one to stand by his side. I see. In that case, thank you for your blessing. Albedo returned to smiling, warmly adding. That leaves only Rubedo. Our youngest sister has a heart of stone. She is dangerous. Negretto's expression darkened. She, as everyone else, deserves a chance to live. I have no reason to suspect that she would not be loyal. Momonga said. Of course. I will trust your judgment, my lord. Negretto bowed. You are coming with us just in case. And since this room is not in living conditions, Momonga glanced around. You will live on the 9th floor for now. You are too kind, my lord. With Negretto's situation resolved, their next destination was the 8th floor, where Rubedo resided. Her unmoving angelic form came into view standing on the small hill overlooking the 8th floor. Ains, of course, already knew how to activate her. There was a bit of hesitation, but since she should be loyal as well, there was no reason to leave her inactive. Glory to Ains Ul Gaun. Ains said the activation code, and a few moments after the action code was given, Rubedo opened her eyes and spread her metallic wings. She then proceeded to kneel, completely ignoring her sisters, and addressed Ains. Lord Momonga, thank you for awakening me. I'm ready to serve and protect you. Protect me. Rubedo, I'm honored you want to protect me, but there is no danger for me inside of Nazarick, and I wanted to assign you to guard the entirety of Nazarick, not just me. Only Lord Momonga is important, but I will protect Nazarick if it matters to you. Ains understood what she was saying. Rubedo would protect only him even from Nazarick itself, so he had to decide how to address it. Nazarick is more important than me, even in my own eyes, but I will comply with your wish and make you my personal bodyguard. That being said, I want you to consider anyone who is part of Nazarick as important to me and thus needing to be protected. Understood, Lord Momonga, I gladly accept the duty of personal bodyguard, Rubedo said in a rather natural voice, reminding Ains of Shizu, who acted rather similarly. Rise Rubedo, you will need to relocate to the 9th floor, and I hope you will get along with the denizens there. Of course, Lord Momonga, Rubedo replied, rising up and folding her wings behind her back. Well then, I'll leave you three to catch up a bit, and Albedo, please assign rooms for Rubedo and Negretto to stay in. Would giving them accommodations in the servant district be good enough, Lord Momonga? Albedo asked. For now, yes. We can discuss the long-term living arrangements later. Momonga replied. With that, Ains left the three sisters to chat among themselves. He noticed how Negretto was looking at Rubedo with suspicion but decided not to address it. With Rubedo awakened, everything was set up for the evening event. Bonus story, the son. With every named NPC attending the ceremony, he needed to make sure his son would be able to reach the throne room. Being stuck in the treasury with no clear way out, he could not leave it on his own. Ains teleported to the treasury, steeling himself for the first meeting with Pandora's actor. The moment he appeared in the entry room, the doppelganger jumped to his feet and flipped around with an enthusiastic salute. Mein Schöpfer, ich bin überglücklich, dich kennenzulernen. Momonga froze on spot. The hell did he just say? Maybe leaving him with the ability to speak German wasn't such a great idea. With the emotional suppression once again coming to his rescue, he could carry on as if nothing had happened. Pandora. Good to see you. How have you been? Mir geht es fantastisch und. Pandora. Ains interrupted him. You would follow any order I give you. Of course, creator. Pandora replied startled. Then toned down the German. Neither I nor anyone else in Nazarick is fluent in it. Ains said in a low tone. As you command mine, AGHM. Creator. Pandora saluted once again. That's much better, anything to report? Ains awkwardly asked. To my estimate, it will take me about 4 months to sort the currently unsorted items. Creator, I would recommend expanding the treasury to accommodate the placement of armor and weapons. Pandora theatrically motioned at massive piles of items dropped in the entrance room. During the last few months of the game, Momonga had gathered so much new gear that the regular storage rooms were overfilled and he started to just empty his inventory on the ground. I see. Can you prepare an estimate and run it by Albedo to see if the changes are possible? Albedo. My lord, I am terribly sorry but I am able to contact the Guardian Overseer only through a message spell and would not be able to send detailed plans to her. Pandora lowered his head in shame. For now I will take you to the 9th floor where you can take a look around until the ceremony and afterward I have a solution prepared so you'll be able to move in and out of the treasury at your leisure. Wonderful. I look forward to meeting my colleagues. He is doing his best. Momonga let out another sigh and opened a gate to his quarters motioning for Pandora to follow. Oh, and you can address me more casually. My friend's children address their creators either by first name, which in my case is now Ains, or if you like you can call me father. Ains said stepping through the gate. Father, that is such an honor. Pandora said quickly following his creator. The moment he stepped through he looked around in panic. Father. What is all this? Ains shuddered and slowly turned to face his son. Fuck. I forgot about all the loot I dropped in my quarters. That. I was in a rush after some treasure hunts and stored. Pandora, what are you doing? Ains followed Pandora who rushed towards vases filled with weapons and started to sort them by type. Father is the treasurer of Nazarick. I cannot let anyone see that I have failed my duty so spectacularly. Please give me an hour, no 3 hours, and I will at least sort everything out and give you an approximation of what else is needed. Pandora pushed one vase about 5 centimeters so it would be in one line with the rest. Sure, the ceremony starts in 4 hours at the throne room. I'll leave you to your work then. Of course, Father. Pandora saluted and returned to his work. Now only to figure out where to go for a few hours. Ains mused walking out of his quarters. Before he reached his door he stopped and glanced at the maid who was standing silently with a whole spectrum of emotions on her face as she stared at Pandora. Right, they hate it if they are not useful. Maybe I let her help Pandora. Decrement, I am leaving. Please help my son if he needs assistance with anything. Yes, Lord Momonga. She smiled and approached the doppelganger. Give her something to do. Ains messaged Pandora and left his apartments with the naive hope that the maid-son duo would not go overboard. Proofreading by Visor Nixon, Detract, Sad_Smiles, Ethel07, and Tofrel. Anne, thank you for reading the story, and if you have caught up to the latest chapter, you can check out my other work or join my Discord server, link is in my profile where additional chapters are available or if you are interested in becoming a beta reader. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6